Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, hello. Let's get some music going for the squirrel party here tonight. Do, 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 do. Here we go. Hello, my friends. Y'all, I'm so shout out to you guys who are here. I just saw this about STS. I'm just so happy, just to launch right on into this. I'm so happy that STS has been having law tubers on, and it sucks because I've been so busy that I've not been able to be in the live chat very much, but I've been watching, and I saw Runkle on the other night, and I saw Uncivil. Was that tonight? Uncivil was on. Anyway, I freaking love it. I'm so happy that they're having law tubers on. It makes me so happy. I think Runkle's been on twice, which I freaking love. And I'm like, it kills me that I'm like, oh my God, Runkle's here. And I can't even be here to be like, Runkle. But anyway, I'm sure at some point he'll be on and I'll be able to make it and be there. Yes, freaking best guess is right, DSN. That is it. Indeed. For sure. What was it about Ned Smith, though? What did I miss here? And I hope you had a great vacation, DSN, and we love seeing the pictures. Did y'all hear about Buster Murdaugh? Sorry, Bus. Let me get his name right. Good old Bus. Back in the news. So Buster is suing Netflix, Warner Brothers, and a host of other people for defamation because they were all saying that he was involved with Stephen Smith's death, allegedly. Well, also that potentially they were like lovers, and then additionally being involved with which, I mean, you know what? It is defamation. I don't remember exactly the languaging that they used. Those companies should all be smart enough to know that, like, if they come out and say that point blank, like, they're asking for a lawsuit, honestly. That is defamation. 100%. Now, they might, if they use languaging like, I don't know. There's ways that they could maybe kind of get around it, but then you'd be looking at maybe defamation per se. Right, I know. That is going to be the heart of the lawsuit right there, if they actually said it. And that's what they're going to be fighting over. I can already tell you. If it makes it to trial, or even if it doesn't make it to trial, even if they're working it out, with court filings, that's what it's going to be about. Did they actually say it? That's what it's going to be. That's going to be the whole thing. And so there's also things like with defamation, you have issues like, we heard a lot about this in Debbie Heard too, like issues of like, was the statement false? Did the person who said it know that it was false? Or sometimes that doesn't even matter. There's a lot of different facets. Defamation is quite complex. But like you have things like, I think they're going to be working with a defamation per se lawsuit here. In that, like actual defamation, not per se, would be like, for example, like in Debbie Heard, right? The allegations made by Amber Heard that she lost on, right? Were like, she was trying to say like she lost job opportunities because of what Johnny said about her, as an example, right? Like she didn't get this this acting job or that acting job or whatever. So there were actual damages. But per se is like reputational damage, if that makes sense. Yeah, there were definitely implications about Alex as well, though. And who knows? We might see a lawsuit from him also, which would be hilarious. Like, as if he doesn't have enough going on. Oh, DSN says there was a chicken on SDS yesterday. And I commented, he's got a bird in his mouth. Oh my God, that is amazing. Why was there a chicken on SDS? That is awesome. Well done, Ned Smith. Love her. Did Precious enjoy herself also on the vacation? It looks like she did. So cute. So, one thing I wanted to start with, let me pause my music here. Okay, one thing I wanted to start with besides this
is a chicken.
Is that when we were talking about expert witnesses on the last recap, I believe it was, and Modine was there. Hopefully Modine will join us tonight. Shout out to Modine. We were talking about expert witnesses and in relation to Trooper Paul, freaking Trooper Paul, right? And I was talking about garbage in, garbage out. And so then like the next day or maybe 2 days later, I was watching a Runkle recap and he was actually talking about the cell phone forensics lady. And so I made just a short little clip because I thought it was funny. So I'm going to show this to you guys. Garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out, right? That's what was fed in for that chart. And that's why the chart to me, I have problems with, because the basis for it, as he was that was the foundation. The foundation that was laid for that chart was, how did he get those numbers? And how did he get those numbers was searching all the different possibilities on Google Maps and then averaging them. We need someone to validate that shit, right? Like in a real way. Because if like the math is the math, right? But it has to be based on the right numbers. And if it's not, then the math is wrong.
Okay, so this is talking about what she's reviewing in order to come to her decision. For any expert, there's a rule that applies, which is garbage in, garbage out. If the expert gets shit information, then the expert is going to produce a shit report. It is just a rule of the universe.
So additionally, I made this as another thing that we can always have ready to go for whenever we're talking about this concept of garbage in, garbage out. So here's the little one I have ready here.
For any expert, there's a rule that applies, which is garbage in, garbage out. It is just a rule of the universe.
So that's the little clip. So yes. But yeah, oh, that's so cute. Precious DSN's dog walked a good mile on the hike and he carried her the rest. Well, you're a nice dad to her. That's so funny. Dogs be dogs, right? How cute. She was leading the way initially. Interesting. Gigo. Why are you fasting? Is that like, no, that's not for religious. I mean, I know some people do it for religious. Oh, I love your new picture, by the way. Beautiful. You're so beautiful, Black Widow. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. Not that anyone ever would, because I would kill them in a second. All right, so y'all, we're going to do Trooper. Well, actually, first we have Trooper. I think it's Trooper. We have Mr. Barros. We'll hear if he's a trooper or not. But then we're going to have Trooper Proctor. And what's funny is, just like with a lot of this, there's some things in his testimony that actually end up being even more important in hindsight after hearing things that come in after him with other witnesses. So let us jump right on in, my friends. Here we go.
It's a house.
No one's going to kill you, Black Widow, but we're going to kill other. Oh, you're saying if you don't think you're beautiful. Well.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Nicholas Barros, Barros,
And how are you employed, sir?
with the town of Dighton.
And what, if any, role or what do you do for the town of Dyke?
I'm a police sergeant for the police
I
department.
don't do anything.
And how long in total have you been a member of the Dyke Police?
So he's a
In
sergeant.
total, started in 2011, 14 years this December.
And how long have you had the rank of sergeant with
Well-
the Dyke Police?
You're
One of my favorite parts, well, of Trooper Paul, I was going to say, but they're all my favorite parts. But even just right from the beginning, when he asked him how long he's been a trooper for the Massachusetts State Police, and he's like, gets that wrong. It's the first question. It's my favorite thing.
and a half.
Now, if I could direct
I
your
know, right?
attention to January 29th, 2022. Do you recall that date?
I do.
And were you working that date?
I
But
was.
let's start with the compliments on him. Honest, definitely. We're going to hear a lot of differences in how he describes, for example, the taillight. And yeah, honest, seems to do his job correctly, which is a plus, as always. He's got a very nice suit coat as well. Nice dark navy blue color.
Now,
Y'all think?
at some point when you first came in, with reference, if you could explain to the jury just briefly or in general terms,
Reference.
when
He
you
doesn't even
come
he
on
just-
shift for the
Help
Dighton
himself.
Police, what, if any, communication, well, first and foremost, what
Fucking
was your
hell.
role as far as that particular shift was concerned?
Hold on. Okay.
Um,
Let me just say, we have to hear that again. The question eventually ends up being, what was your role at the beginning of the shift? Let's listen to how that question starts, because that's a fucking disaster, even for Lally.
Were you working that day?
I was.
Now, at some point when you first came in, with reference, if you could explain to the jury just briefly or in general terms, when you come on shift for the Dighton Police, what, if any, communication, well, first and foremost, what was your
Help me
role
now.
as far as that particular shift was
You guys,
concerned?
that is the most disaster. Maybe Lally's just outdone himself. Let's listen again. One more
Were you
time.
working that day?
I was.
Now, at some
Yeah.
point when you first came in, with reference, if you could explain to the jury just briefly or in general terms, when you come on shift for the Dighton Police, what, if any, communication, well, first and foremost, what was your role as far as that particular shift was concerned?
You know what? Lally is the type of, is the equivalent for an attorney as Trooper Paul is to being an expert witness. I just have to say that.
I was the officer in charge that day, from 8 a.m. to midnight. When I came in at 8 a.m., the outgoing shift, the midnight to 8 shift, had advised me that a resident had called the police station on a 911 call requesting a ride to Brockton Hospital to meet his daughter due to her daughter's boyfriend passing away, and he needed a ride due to the snowstorm.
And then, as your shift continued, what, if any, further contact or who, if anyone, reached out to you in regard to that earlier situation?
Later on, I believe it was around 2:30 in the afternoon, I received a phone call from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office with the troopers assigned there, and they had stated that they were going to come to Dighton to retrieve a vehicle that was involved in a homicide.
And did they give you a specific address as far as where they were going?
I believe the address was 345 Country Hill Drive in Dighton, North Dighton.
And with regard to that address, what, if anything, did you recognize between that and the earlier call that you were just speaking of?
That was the address that came up on the 911 call when that gentleman had called earlier on the prior shift.
Now, as far as you received that call at about 2:30, do you know specifically who you spoke to around 2:30 in the afternoon?
Trooper Michael Proctor.
And upon receiving that call, what, if anything, did you do?
I had contacted, Trooper Proctor had asked me to contact our tow company to have them meet us at the residence as well. And I said, once I hung up with him, I would contact the tow company and then respond to that address on Country Hill Drive.
Now, as far as that area of Dighton, if you could explain to the jury sort of what you observed as you were coming down towards that residence on that day.
Okay, so when I responded to that address, that street is off of 138. When I turned onto Country Hill Drive, I was traveling west. When I arrived on that street, I observed a black pickup truck parked on the street facing east. I was flagged down by that black pickup truck by the driver and was told that they were the troopers that I had spoke to, Trooper Michael Proctor and the other sergeant.
Sergeant that left the room as you were coming in?
Correct.
And what identification did they provide to you in reference to that?
They showed me their ID and their badges.
And then from there, where did you proceed?
I had parked my marked police vehicle at the end of the driveway since it was a snowstorm and we could not get into the driveway. And then we walked up to the residence.
And at some point, did you make any observations of the right rear part of that Lexus SUV?
I did.
And what, if anything, did you observe about that area of the vehicle?
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight.
Damage.
To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked and a piece was missing.
We're going to listen to that again. Black Witter with some nice compliments here for the gentleman. Suit jacket matches nicely with his beard and tie with his skin tone. I agree, definitely. He's compositionally beautiful with his lip, tie, beard, skin tones. Yes, I agree. Dia sensing it's like a game where at the end of each piece of evidence you find it's been despoiled by Trooper. Candace, I'm glad you're here. Yeah. So let's listen to that again, his description of the taillight, because that's key.
Driveway, and then we walked up to the residence.
And at some point, did you make any observations of the right rear part of that Lexus SUV?
I did.
And what, if anything, did you observe about that area of the vehicle?
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
And then beyond the taillight area of that vehicle, what, if anything else, did you observe as far as damage to the rear passenger side area?
Like a dent on the rear quarter.
And as far as the dent on the rear quarter panel that you saw, was that above the taillight, below the taillight, or something else?
It's probably right in conjunction with the taillight in that same area.
And from the time that you made these observations of the vehicle, at any point did you go sort of physically up to the vehicle?
I walked up to the vehicle, correct.
One thing
And
I
about how
have to
far away
say,
from the vehicle did you get?
one thing I have to say about that dent, of all the millions of ways that the Commonwealth is reaching, I think that dent is one of the big ones. I mean, there's so many, but like, fucking hell. Like I showed in that little video I made, you can have dents on your car that come from anything, and they don't have to be from you. Like, there's no evidence that dent has anything to do with this night at all. Whether even if, let's say that in the 1,000,000 to 1 odds, she backed into John O'Keefe, he struck his arm on the taillight, went pirouetting 3 feet in the air, and then died. Let's say that that's what happened to the taillight. That doesn't even mean that's when the dent happened. I mean, it's just so silly. Just so silly.
5 to 10 feet away.
And as far as the sort of outside or exterior of the vehicle, you mentioned obviously there's about a foot of snow in the ground. What, if anything, precipitation-wise or weather-wise, was around or on the outside of the vehicle?
Just snow.
What the hell?
And in particular, in this area of the right rear passenger side on that taillight, was there any snow or ice or anything around that area that you observed?
On the vehicle itself?
Yes.
Yes, on the vehicle there was snow on the vehicle.
And as far as the time that the troopers went into the house, at some point the troopers obviously came out of the house, correct?
Correct.
No, Lally. No, they're still inside the house to this day. They never left. Let's listen to that question again, because that's a good one.
Passenger side on that taillight, was there any snow or ice or anything around that area that you observed?
On the vehicle itself?
Yes.
Yes, on the vehicle, there was snow on the vehicle.
And as far as the time that the troopers went into the house, at some point the troopers obviously came out of the house, correct?
Correct.
And they stayed there forever.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, cross-examination.
No questions.
All right, Sergeant Barros, you are all set, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lally, your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth to call Trooper Michael Proctor to the stand.
You want to put those down there? Just be mindful to step up. I'm going to set your face in.
Honorable
Raise your right hand. Also, swear the understood the court and jury in the case now and here to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, jurors.
the nerve. Y'all, I forgot that he did that. I forgot that he did that. You guys, does he think this is going to go well for him? Wait, let's listen to that again. That is insane. What?
Be mindful to step up. I'm going to set your face in.
No way.
Raise your right hand. Also, swear the understood the court and jury in the case now and here to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, jurors.
What the fuck, man? They already hate him. Like, what is he thinking is going to happen here? What? He's a hero.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Wow. Good morning, jurors. Fuck you, man.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Trooper Michael Proctor, Proctor.
And how are you employed, sir?
I am currently assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office in the Homicide Unit within the Massachusetts State Police.
Now, how long have you been a trooper with the state police?
For about 10 years, and it'll be 5 years in September with the Homicide Unit.
Now, were you working in that capacity with the detective units on January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
And at some point in the morning, did you receive a call in regard to a situation in the town of Canton?
I did.
And what, if anything, was that? When did you first receive that call from them?
Sergeant Buchanan called me at approximately 6:48 that Saturday morning, advised that Canton PD had a male party that was discovered in the snow outside of a residence, and he wasn't sure what had happened. It was originally given to me as a possible medical situation.
And based on that initial call and that initial information that you received, what, if anything, did you do?
At that point, I knew I needed to gather further information, so I contacted Detective Lank from Canton Police Department to see exactly what transpired in the morning. He had informed me that a male party had been transported to Good Samaritan Hospital with some injuries. Detective Lank didn't have much more information, so I knew I needed to contact the paramedic at the hospital, the individual who's treating Mr. O'Keefe.
Before we get to that, if I could, I'm sorry. As far as Detective Sergeant Lank was concerned, was that someone that you called on your own, or how did you get his information, or why did you call him specifically?
I knew he was on scene, so I called Detective Lank.
So that was some information that you had received at some point earlier, and then you contacted Detective Sergeant Lank.
Correct.
And following that, you reached out to whom? I'm sorry?
This firefighter Anthony Flamati.
And with reference to that conversation, what, if anything, did you learn from that?
Firefighter Flamati informed me that
I'm going to allow it.
Firefighter Flamati informed me that Mr. O'Keefe had some injuries to his right arm, some abrasions to his right arm, some injuries to his eyes, a cut to the nose area, and he put a 10% chance of survival for Mr. O'Keefe.
And then based on that information, who did you call next?
I contacted Sergeant Buchanan, advised him that this sounds like it's more than a medical situation.
And so, Trooper Proctor, if I could ask you, whereabouts were you at about 8:22 in the morning?
Home.
Had you shoveled out of your driveway at that time?
Not yet.
Had you cleaned off your car at that time?
No.
Now, with regard to the parties that you just mentioned, prior to January 29th, 2022, Had you ever met or were you aware of either Jennifer McCabe or Kerry Roberts or Karen Reed or John O'Keefe?
I've never met any of them.
Now, from the Canton Police Station, where did you and Sergeant Buchanan go?
The McCabe's house in Canton.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with it?
We spoke with Matthew and Jennifer McCabe as well as Brian Albert.
And those interviews that you conducted, were they how were they conducted?
One-on-one, Sergeant Buchanan and myself kind of rotated out Jennifer, Matthew, and Brian. So first we interviewed Jennifer, and then once that was completed, we had her step out, go to a separate room, brought in Matthew, and then the same thing with Brian.
And for the balance of the interviews that you conducted several interviews over the course of your investigation in this case, is that correct?
Correct.
And for those interviews, as far as individually done, was that primarily what you did with each of the people that you interviewed over the course of the investigation?
Yes, each interview conducted was either with Sergeant Buchanan or another trooper, in one-on-one, with the exception of Julie and Chris Albert, I believe, were in the same room as us.
Now, with respect to, I believe you just answered it, but as far as each of the interviews that you conducted over the course of your investigation, was it, at any point in time, was there an interview that you conducted just by yourself?
There was just one.
And who was that one that you conducted by yourself?
That took place just at the grand jury across the street. It was the Currans. I had some difficulty locating them, so when they appeared for grand jury, I interviewed them one-on-one by myself prior to their testimony at grand jury.
Now, following the interviews that you conducted at the McCabe household, where did you go from there?
After the interviews at the McCabe household, Sergeant Buchanan and I traveled to Good Samaritan Hospital for two reasons. One, we knew Miss Reed was there receiving treatment for Section 12. And two, we wanted to view Mr. O'Keefe.
And when you arrived at the Good Samaritan Hospital, was the defendant, Miss Reed, still at that facility at that time?
We had spoke with the security staff at Good Samaritan Hospital.
Lester, what are you?
They informed us that
Lester, what are you referring to here with point and saying they
Miss
came out?
Reed was released.
I'll allow it just as to where you went.
I know, right?
That Miss Reed was released several hours prior to our arrival.
And do you know about what time it was that you arrived, yourself and Sergeant Buchanan, at the Good Samaritan?
Maybe approximately 1 o'clock.
And you mentioned there was a second reason, and that was to view Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
And did you have occasion, or did you have a chance to view Mr. O'Keefe's body at the Good Samaritan?
We did.
And where was that within the hospital?
I was in the emergency room.
And when you went to where Mr. O'Keefe was, can you describe for the jury what, if any, observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe's body at the time that you observed?
The first thing I noticed on Mr. O'Keefe is he had abrasions on his right arm. On the top of his right arm, there's approximately 6 to 8, ranging from his forearm to his lower bicep. There was no injuries underneath that forearm. Both eyes were swollen and black and blue. He had a cut on, I believe it was his right nostril. Another smaller cut, I believe it was on his left eye. Those were the injuries that kind of jumped out to me.
At any point in time, did you make any observations of the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head while you were there?
I did observe blood on the back of the head. I wasn't able to tell if there's any significant trauma to the back of his head.
Now, from the Good Samaritan Hospital, yourself and Sergeant Buchanan, what, if any, items did you secure in evidence from the Good Samaritan Hospital?
So after we viewed Mr. O'Keefe's body, we observed a pile of clothes in the corner that hospital staff had cut off Mr. O'Keefe and kind of piled into the corner. The one thing that had jumped out to both of us was one sneaker. And it's fairly common in a motor vehicle pedestrian strike that...
Sustained. Next question. I'll strike from fairly common, the observations were made.
And so with respect to your observations of the clothing, there only being one sneaker at Mr. O'Keefe's property, what, if any, significance did that have to you as far as the sort of steps you took subsequent in your investigation?
That was just a little piece of evidence that Sergeant Mechanic and I picked up, that only one piece of footwear revealed the potential of a vehicle strike.
Now, with respect to the one sneaker that was found in Mr. O'Keefe's property, what, if anything, with regard to that, did you communicate to
Oh my
Lieutenant
God,
Tucker?
Lally. Fuck's sake.
Objection.
As to how it goes to the investigation,
Oh, right. Gotcha, Tucker.
I'll allow it.
I know.
So we
Right, and that's the thing. That's the thing, right? I commented on that. I probably timestamped it. Actually, I believe I did. I think I timestamped it as like Squirrel Theory or something when we were watching. It was when he was testifying live during trial, and they were showing the pictures of him in the hospital with his binder on cross. And we won't get to that part tonight. We'll get to that on the next recap. But that's when it dawned on me. I think Candace was, no, wait. I know Fender was there. I don't remember. I don't know if you guys watched it on replay, but the questioning and the way that whole thing lined up, it was like, it just dawned on me. I was like, holy shit, this is really creepy. Like, and what you're saying is right in line with that, right? Like, at that point, it was 10%, but once he was in the hospital and they go to interview him, it was even less. And it's like, what if they went there just to make sure he wasn't going to wake up? And then what if there could even have been something a little bit even more nefarious, right? Like when you see the pictures, it gives you a really weird feeling because you see John O'Keefe, like you see all his clothes in a pile and then he's hooked up to a million different like wires and shit. And you see Trooper Proctor's legs right there and you can see that binder and it's just like, oh my God. It just gives you a really uneasy feeling. But we'll get to watch that again. If you missed it on the recap, we'll get to see it. Or not on the recap, sorry. When it happened live, you'll get to see it on the recap.
Sergeant Mechanic and I informed DLT Tully that there was one shoe at the hospital.
And with respect to Detective Lieutenant Tully, are you aware that subsequently in the afternoon that there was a search that was conducted in the area of 34 Fairview Road where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
Yes.
And are you aware of what, if anything, was recovered in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was found on that day?
Objection.
I'll allow it as to the investigation.
Yes.
And what are you aware?
We were informed, Sergeant Mechanic and I were informed that CERT team and Detective Lieutenant Tully discovered a black Nike sneaker with the white swoosh logo that was a match to Mr. O'Keefe's shoe at the hospital.
As far as the drive from the Good Samaritan in Brockton to the defendant's parents' home in Dighton, about how long a drive was that and how would you describe the weather conditions along the way?
Yeah, the weather conditions were whiteout, high winds, blizzard conditions. We had to travel very slow. It was almost about an hour to get there.
So as you're walking up the driveway towards the home, you see Miss Reed's vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's a vehicle that you later subsequently found to be registered to Miss Karen Reed, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to Miss Reed, at some point you go into the house, is that correct?
Yes.
And how do you enter into the defendant's parents' home?
Through the chimney, like Santa Claus.
So Sergeant Mechanic and I, after we had knocked on the front door, Mr. Reed directed us around the corner, opened up the garage door for us, and invited us in.
Now, if I could take you back to, I'm sorry, just as far as when you're coming up the driveway and you're passing by the defendant's vehicle, you mentioned some damage that you observed to the right rear.
He has to back up because he forgot to ask perhaps one of the most important questions of all. Not that his answer matters, but he forgot to fucking ask about the fucking taillight. You've got to be kidding me.
Passenger side area, is that correct?
Insanity.
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what it was specifically that you observed as far as damage to that area of the vehicle?
Yeah, the right rear tail light had potentially large pieces missing from it.
Now, in addition to the defendant's vehicle, what, if anything else, was taken and seized as evidence from the defendant on that morning?
After confirming the phone Miss Reed was holding was in fact hers, we told her we're seizing the phone and we'd be writing a search warrant for that.
So you secure the phone, you secure the vehicle on the tow truck, and then where did you and Sergeant McKenna go from there?
We followed the tow truck from the address in Dayton to the Canton Police Department. We're secured in the Sallyport Bay.
And if you know approximately what time was it that you arrived at the Canton Police Department and secured the defendant's vehicle in the Sallyport Bay?
Yep, so we left Dayton around 4:16 p.m. and arrived in Canton at the police department at approximately 5:31 p.m.
And with reference to the Canton Police Department's Sallyport garage, why was the vehicle taken there?
I wasn't part of that decision, but it's my understanding that it was a heated facility. The other options were, I believe, the barracks in Milton, but that's not large enough to house a vehicle that size, and it's not heated.
As far as the vehicle was concerned, either on scene, either in Dayton.
Something I want you guys to keep in mind for when we get to cross, which will be tonight, is that question right there. So that's the first time in this direct examination, the first time chronologically, really, where he, as in Trooper Proctor, ends up being privy to the fact that there's anything related to Canton PD involved. So because he gets a call from Trooper Mechanic, right? So they're all Mass State Police, right? And they're working together. They go to the house and they take the vehicle. The vehicle being towed to the Lally port in Canton at the Canton PD is the first exposure, if you will, that Trooper Proctor has that Canton PD is actually involved in this case. And this is what? Not even 24 hours after he's passed away. What? Just over 12 hours after John O'Keefe has passed away. Keep that in mind for when we get to cross, because it's gonna come up. There's gonna be some interesting things about that.
Or at the Sallyport garage, or at any point in time that you were
I think
in
he
the
has a lot
presence
of
of that
problems.
vehicle,
Black
what
Widow.
kind of contact did you have? What if anything
problem, I
did
think
you-
Lally has
did
it.
you do or observe Sergeant Mechanic to do with regard to that damaged area you described on the right rear passenger side?
Yeah, Sergeant Mechanic and I never touched any part of that vehicle.
I also want to say real quick here that this also reminds me of when we get to the Ring doorbell videos and they are asking him, like, so why did you go all the way to John O'Keefe's house, blah, blah. And he's like, well, I wanted to make sure his car was okay. It just reminds me that it's like, okay.
And as far as the moving it from sort of the tow truck into the Sallyport area, how was that accomplished?
The tow truck driver removed it from the tow truck and pulled it into the Sallyport Bay.
And as far as that meeting is concerned, that's just troopers from your unit, from your office, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so there were no members of the Canton Police Department that were present for that, is that correct?
No, correct.
And do you know why that was?
They had taken a step back from the investigation. They weren't going to participate in any interviews or anything of that nature.
And how
Well,
was that
finding that
communicated
nature,
to
what do you
you
mean?
and Sergeant Mechanic?
The best of my recollection was that debrief meeting that we were informed
And
that
remember,
essentially Canton PD.
Mr. Red Solo Cup disaster dude from week 1, which was 1,000 years ago, was like, I didn't see any reason why Canton even needed to recuse themselves. He said that over and over again. That was so insane. He's like, yeah, I don't even know why they needed to recuse themselves.
Taking a step back from the investigation, and that now this is just solely a Norfolk.
And the reason I'm saying that is this. Sorry, because you have somebody like him, and there might have been a couple others in the beginning too that were like, yeah, Canton didn't even need to recuse themselves. Then you have people that are like, yeah, both, which is going to come out in his text messages, both Canton and Boston should be recused. But Boston isn't, and Canton says they are, but aren't really. So there's people that don't think it needs to be happening, and then the people that think it needs to be happening know that it's not happening and don't care. So
State police investigation.
And so what was sort of the purpose of or not specifically what was discussed, but in general terms, what was discussed during the course of this debriefing?
The taillight piece is found at 34 Fairview Road by CERT. The one sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road. Interviews conducted, and then Sergeant Mechanic and I also shared everything we had kind of learned throughout the day as well.
How is it that they go, or what, if anything, is done, if you know, between the time that they go from this temporary storage area to the permanent storage area?
Yeah, I'm not an evidence officer. I never have been. My understanding is once it's in the evidence processing area, it gets put into the permanent evidence room that only, like I said, two troopers and a detective lieutenant have access to. And it's the evidence officer's responsibility to process that material when they see fit.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to February 1st of 2022. Were you working in regard to this investigation on that date as well?
Yes.
And at some point, did you have occasion to go back
I'm going to back up. Did anyone else catch the when they see fit thing? I'll back it up because that's actually kind of key here.
Turn your attention to February 1st.
Process that evidence room that only, like I said, two troopers and a detective lieutenant have access to. And it's the evidence officer's responsibility to process that material when they see fit.
So I'm wondering, I think he adds that on there because he knows it's going to come out that there was like weeks and weeks that go by before those clothing items and pieces of the Taillight are sent to the crime lab for evidence testing.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to February 1st of 2022.
I think that's even still giving it too much credit.
To this investigation on that date as well?
Yes.
And at some point, did you have occasion to go back to the Canton Police Department, specifically in the Sallyport garage area?
I did.
And what was the purpose of you going out to the Sallyport garage on that day?
Pursuant to a search warrant, we were processing Miss Reed's Lexus SUV.
And when you say we, who, if anyone else, was present with you, or who, if anyone else, did you contact in reference to the processing pursuant to that search warrant of the defendant's vehicle? So
we had a chemist from the State Police Lab, Miss Maureen Hartnett, as well as a trooper from Crime Scene Services, Trooper Zachary Clark. And then later in the day, the accident recon team, Trooper Joe Paul, had arrived as well.
Oh,
now, with
boy,
respect
there
to
he is.
this particular investigation, there were a number of different areas or different times when Crime Scene Services was contacted to document things, correct?
Yes.
And that would include a Good Samaritan when you observed injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
Correct.
That would include the autopsy that was performed to Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
That would include February 1st in the Sallyport garage when the search warrant was executed on the defendant's vehicle?
Correct.
That would include subsequent searches that occurred at Fairview Road, is that correct?
Yes.
And with respect to each of those instances, if you know, was it ever the same trooper from Crime Scene Services section that came out and memorialized each of those respective areas?
Yeah, it was a different trooper each time.
And is that something that you or any member of your unit has any control over whatsoever as far as who shows up from Crime Scene Services to memorialize or document a scene?
No.
Well, then how can you say it was a different trooper each time? Or like you're just saying that was a coincidence and wasn't on purpose? I don't get it. It's like, yeah, it was a different trooper each time, but like we didn't do that shit on purpose.
And so while this is going, if I could just ask a couple questions as far as people within this video, do you recognize anyone in this video?
Yeah, myself, kind of the top of the screen. Trooper Zach Clark, we're the one with the camera taking photographs of the vehicle.
Now, with reference to this video from the Sallyport garage of the Canton Police Department, what, if anything, did you learn over the course of this in regard to how that video is recorded or how it's, what, if anything, sort of activates that video?
Objection.
Ask it differently, Mr. Lally.
As far as this video is concerned, is this one continuous time frame that we're looking at, or how is it?
Objection.
Sustained.
My understanding, it's motion
That
active.
means you can't answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can ask a different.
I'm not sure there was anything said.
No.
Oh, all right. I'll strike if there was anything. But, Mr. Lally, just ask a question, please.
This is so funny because he can't do it. Lally can't even do it. He can't do it without leading. Listen.
With respect to this video,
Hi, Kid Smith's happy you're here. Happy to see you. What?
as far as the recording is set up,
God.
how is that activated, or how does it record?
Objection. Same question.
Yeah, how does he know that? It's sustained.
Lally can't even.
Have you watched this video or other videos from the Canton Police Department, Sally Port Garage?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you note with regard to timing? As far there is a timestamp on the video, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you note with regard to the timestamp on this video or the other videos that you observed with regard to how time moves throughout the video?
The timestamp on the video tends to pause, indicating it's motion activated.
No.
Last one.
It tends to pause. I'll strike after.
What a man.
It's going to run until about 9:24. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Thank you very much. Now, Trooper, with regard to that taillight that was then taken by Ms. Hartnett to the lab, is that correct?
Yes.
And at some point, that was returned to the custody of the state police, your detective unit?
Correct.
And do you have that taillight housing with you today in court?
I do.
So now he's gonna present Taillight.
Thank you, sir.
At least you didn't
So
fuck
Trooper,
that
you
up.
can go ahead and put that back.
Look,
in
you
the
can
box.
hold
Thank
that
you
up
very
and
much.
not fuck it up. Amazing. I thought that was fucking hilarious. That's why I left it. Look at that, y'all.
Trooper, with respect to that item that's just been marked as evidence, is that essentially the condition that you observed it in both on January 29th and February 1st?
Yes. Yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask just to publish what's been marked as Exhibit 147. Trooper Proctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen that's been marked as Exhibit 147?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the right taillight of Miss Reed's Lexus SUV, and you can see large pieces of it are missing.
And again, is that in the same condition that you observed it both on February 1st as well as January 29th, obviously minus the snow and the ice?
Yeah, minus the snow and ice, sir, yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention to February 3rd of 2022. In the morning hours of that date, where did you go in regard to this investigation?
Sergeant Mechanic, Trooper David Achico, and myself went to 34 Fairview Road along with Trooper Evan Brandt from Crime Scene Services to essentially dig out the snow in pursuit for more evidence.
Now, as far as you mentioned, as far as dig out the snow in pursuit of other evidence, what, if any, tools or implements did you and the other troopers bring with you in order to effectuate that on February 3rd?
We just had kind of standard snow shovels.
I mean,
And with respect to that, as far as going back to 34
Right, I
Fairview
know,
Road,
right? DS
and
yeah.
let me clarify as far as that's
Yeah.
concerned. Prior to that date of February 3rd, 2022, had you been to 34 Fairview Road at any point in time in the course of your investigation?
No,
So that morning of February 3rd, that's the first time that you went.
correct.
Now, with respect to, is that, how many times did you go to the area of 34 Fairview Road over the course of the next sort of days and weeks in regard to potential recovery of items?
So February 3rd, I retrieved items on the 8th, the 11th, and 18th, and was out there on the 10th with Sergeant Mechanic as well.
Now, with respect to items that were located, starting with the 3rd, do you recall specifically what, if any, items were located on the 3rd?
We've located a black drinking straw, consistent with the one seen in the waterfall video of Mr. O'Keefe walking out of the bar holding the glass.
Does
We
anyone else find
located
that-
his hat that had the American flag.
Does anyone else find that crazy? Let me back that up again so you can hear what I'm talking about here. There's something crazy happening here.
Consistent with the one seen in the waterfall video
Of the next sort of days and weeks in regard to potential recovery of items?
So February 3rd, I retrieved items on the 8th, the 11th, and 18th, and was out there on the 10th with Sergeant Mechanic as well.
Now, with respect to items that were located, starting with the 3rd, do you recall specifically what, if any, items were located on the 3rd?
We've located a black drinking straw, consistent with the one seen in the waterfall video of Mr. O'Keefe walking out of the bar holding the glass.
Does anyone else find that insane? About the straw? He says, we found a black drinking straw consistent with the one in the waterfall video that Mr. O'Keefe had when he was holding the glass. You guys, did any one of you guys, in the millions of times we saw that video, can you see a straw at all? You can barely see the glass, right? It's grainy, it's in black and white, it's from far away. That is complete and total bullshit. There's complete and total bullshit. Consistent with the one, like you're supposed to think that anyone's going to believe that you could get that from that video? It's insane.
We located his hat that had the American flag that was deep underneath the snow. As we were digging, we discovered that. We further discovered other pieces of plastic as well.
Now, as far as these return trips on successive dates to 34 Fairview Road, what was the reasoning behind that, or what was sort of the plan in reference to why were there so many different dates that you returned to 34 Fairview Road with other troopers?
So after the 29th, there was close to 2 feet of snow that had fallen. And in the days and weeks that had followed, the temperatures ranged from 30 degrees up to 60 degrees. And there was about a half a dozen days mixed in of, heavy rain. So as the snow started to melt, more evidence started to present itself.
So it's funny, he says present
Now,
itself.
with respect to that residence, why is it that you and Trooper Brent went there on February 3rd?
We wanted to document Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle to show that there was no damage to it, as well as the garage doors.
And why did you want to document that?
During the review of Mr. O'Keefe's ring video, particularly the one above the garage that displays the driveway, on the 29th at approximately 5:07 a.m., Miss Reed's pulling her vehicle out of the garage door, backing up towards Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, and comes extremely close, if not slightly hitting the vehicle. So we wanted to at least go document that there was no damage to Mr. O'Keefe's car.
So initially, I know I made fun of this because I was like, wait, what are you, an insurance agent? First of all, this makes no sense. John O'Keefe is deceased. Okay. You're not an insurance adjuster. Why are you worried about his car having damage? But I think we all know what he's saying there. But here's the thing. I'm going to poke a bunch of holes in that shit. So he's implying that to prove that that's not how her taillight was broken. But it's flawed logic, because as we know, just because his car doesn't have any damage doesn't mean that's not how she cracked her taillight. But I think it's more than that. Here's what I think. I think this is just my squirrel theory. Cue EDB's speculations sound. I think it's entirely possible that they thought that's how she cracked her taillight. And they went to either A, make sure or see if there were any, A, to see if there were any taillight pieces on the ground at John O'Keefe's. Or you could say, make sure there weren't any. Or C, you could even say, collect them. Am I right? What do you guys think? Yay, I'm happy you're here, Fender. Yay! Fender. Right when we're talking about the cars. Perfect timing. Yeah, Kit Smith says the evidence presented itself, revealed itself, made itself known. Yeah, this is the merely sentient evidence. Indeed. It is very much so. Superpower. Only the evidence can talk, right? Just like Bubba. So again, like I was saying, I'm wondering if they actually went. He's like, yeah, we went to make sure his car had any damage. Like, you're okay. Well, even if that is the real reason, it doesn't make any sense. But I'm thinking it might have to do.
With regard to this video, you've seen this before, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, at the point from this video, are you able to discern who the operator of that vehicle is?
Based off the attire, Miss Reed driving.
Based off the attire. Can you guys see who's driving? Let's back that up and watch that again, because I think that's another bullshit. Let's add that. So things that I've not heard anyone else point out, the straw thing, that's total utter bullshit in my opinion. You can't fucking see the straw. Let's see about this. Is this also bullshit? Like, does he think the jury doesn't have eyeballs?
Displays the driveway on the 29th at approximately 5:07 a.m. Miss Reed's pulling her vehicle out of the garage door, backing up towards Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, and comes extremely close, if not slightly.
I'm glad I backed it up for that on accident a little bit too far, but I'm glad I did, because if I was thinking it was around 5 o'clock a.m. and there was another video, maybe in the last recap, where I couldn't remember the exact time, but it's 5:07 a.m. So of course that's important, right? Because that's after he was already, well on his way to his last breaths there.
Hitting the vehicle. So
and after she left,
we want to at least go document that there was no damage to Mr. O'Keefe's car.
All right. So can you guys see her driving? That's what we're looking for. Can you see who's driving the vehicle? Nope. I say bullshit. Watch. Can we see a person's attire? Wow.
Now, Trooper Proctor, with regard to this video, you've seen this before, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, at the point from this video, are you able to discern who the operator of that vehicle is?
Based off the attire, Miss Reed driving.
Now,
Yeah.
with respect
What do you guys think about that?
to when that vehicle, the defendant's vehicle, if you could, there's a laser pointer up there in front of you on the desk. If you could, I would just ask you to draw the jury's attention to what, if any, vehicles you observe in this video and whose vehicles you believe them to be.
So right there, it's Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle and Miss Reed's vehicle.
Now, with reference to the back area of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, specifically in the area of the ground, as far as that area on the ground, what, if anything, did you observe in reference to any red pieces or any pieces of taillight or plastic or glass or anything in that area that you observed?
Again, I'm wondering.
So this area here is, you can see the white snow. There's no red pieces of taillight, which would show up in the contrast of the white snow.
Please tell me if you could run it from there for a moment.
It's really funny that the defense doesn't object to this. I mean, it's on purpose, right? Because they could be objecting because he wasn't there. He's watching the video the same way the jury is, and the jury can see for themselves, right? But they don't object to this.
As far as the damage area that you were discussing previous that you observed in the January 29th in the Sally Port, February 1st in the Sally Port, and then the item that was just marked as evidence. What, if anything, do you observe in the right rear passenger side taillight area of the defendant's vehicle from this video?
You can see the inconsistent lighting. If you can compare it to the left versus the right, there's a gap right there.
And for what you observed from that video, does that appear to be consistent with what you observed on January 29th at the Kent Police Department, February 1st, and in the item of evidence that was just marked?
Yes.
And Trooper Proctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen? It's now been marked as Exhibit 546.
Yes, Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse vehicle.
And with respect to this particular foreground here, if you could describe to the jury what we're looking at there.
So that is Mr. O'Keefe's driveway. You see two garage doors there that lead into the house. And above those garage doors is the Ring camera.
Now, with respect to the rear of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, from your viewing of the video from Exhibit 6, from the Ring video.
Yeah, the gap. I know, right? So yeah, so the thing though here is that we do, and I was thinking the same thing. Like we know she drove, like, and just like when he's like, "Whose cars are those?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's Karen's car and it's John O'Keefe's car." It's like the jury knows that, but like I think he's trying to lay the foundation, like for like those questions, because otherwise it could be maybe objected to. But like when saying whose vehicles are those, it's like that's one thing, but the point of like saying that he sees her driving it because of her attire, for me it's like, well, that's such a reach that like Lally shouldn't be asking the question, you know what I mean? Like, because, and just, you know, the defense wasn't objecting to any of that, so like I don't know, just don't ask the question in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, definitely BS on the gap in the tail. Yeah, Lally is a simple-minded prick and assumes the jury are too. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. What is that from something? Is that a slogan for the gap?
Number 153. If you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to where it is on this vehicle that there's contact, if any, between Ms. Reed's vehicle and Mr. O'Keefe's.
It would have been in this general area here.
And as far as your observations on that date, February
What's the,
3rd,
hold on.
May we approach quickly?
Okay.
Trooper, when you were in the driveway of Mr. O'Keefe's residence
Yeah.
on February 3rd,
They objected because he was asking him to base it off of the video, and so now he's correcting that by saying when you were there.
2022.
Which again, that's a distinction, right? Because in the previous videos with the Ring camera, with her backing up and hitting his car, he wasn't there, and he was actually commenting on things in the video, like the tail light pieces not being there and shit, right? So again, like that's why I was saying it was strategic. The defense chose not to object to them and chose to object for this one, even though it's pretty much the same type of thing.
You had occasion to make observations of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
And what, if any, damage did you observe to the driver's side rear area of the vehicle?
I didn't observe any significant damage or any damage.
And Trooper, do you recognize what's depicted on the screen now as Exhibit 559?
Yes.
And if you could describe to the jury what we're looking at in 559?
The rear bumper area of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle,
Is that the driver's side or the passenger side?
the driver's side.
And what, if any, damage
That's-
did you observe in that area?
Oops, that's really not where it gets hit, guys, is it? Let's look again. I'm going to remember where we are here and look at our timestamp, and then we're going to go back and watch it again. That's not where it gets hit, though. Okay, let me back it up again to where we see the video. Ah, perfect.
Discern who the operator of that vehicle is.
Oh,
Based off the attire,
Hold on, let me go back. And we'll see probably a better video across of it, but yeah. So look at where it's more in the center. Look.
So, okay, a lot of us, like let me say me, for example, I've looked a lot at the wheel to see the wheel move, right? But if you look at where it actually hits there, it's kind of, she goes pretty far back. In other words, like it's almost in the middle or even further to the right. If you're looking at if you're picturing the back of his car looking straight on, and then you imagine a midline, it's more in the middle or even further to the right. And the picture that they're going to show is the left corner. So let's look one more time. See if do you guys agree here with this, with my assessment of that, of where it would be hitting? Yeah, look, I mean, it's pretty far back, right? Like almost on the right-hand corner. Okay, now let me go back to where we were. All right.
That's the driver's side or the passenger side?
The driver's side.
And what, if any, damage did you observe in that area of the vehicle on February 3rd when you were there?
Cool.
No damage.
Now, with respect to the residence at 34 Fairview Road, each of these times that you were at the residence, including February 3rd,
Oh, wait, so sorry, I talked
where
to
in relation to the house were these items?
Let's go back to this picture and see what they're showing. So not only are they showing us the left corner, they're showing the bottom, right? It looks like it hits not just, it hit more in the center or even to the right, but it looks like it's higher up. And they're showing us this bottom left corner, which is just crazy, right?
That's the driver's side.
That's like not at all where that collision happens.
Passenger side.
The driver's side.
That's good to know, Kit Smith.
What, if any,
Hey, we
damage
know
did you observe in
things.
that area of the vehicle on February 3rd when you were there?
No damage.
Now, with respect to the residence at 34 Fairview Road, each of these times that you were at the residence, including February 3rd, where in relation to the house were these items observed and recovered by you and the other troopers on those respective days?
So if you're looking at 34 Fairview, looking at the front of the house, it's to the left side of the property between like the flagpole and kind of the fire hydrant in that general area, the front left of the property.
That's what you want to hear.
Now, with regard
That's what you
to
want to
these
hear. In that general area, blah, 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 no measurements, blah, 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 general area, blah, 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 blah. Great. Excellent.
3 subsequent dates
I
as
have
far as February
confidence.
8th, 11th, and 18th. These items that were observed and recovered on those dates, where were they in relation to the roadway? Where were they in relation to the hydrant, the flagpole, other sort of markers in the area?
I don't specifically remember exactly if they were around.
I'm just pausing it real quick to say that for anyone who missed it at the beginning of the stream, I just wanted to point out that STS, who we always talk about on here because we love STS and STS is the best channel on the planet. STS has been having law tubers on recently, and including Runkle. Runkle's been on there, I think, twice. And then today, maybe, they had Uncivil on. And they've had also some other folks as well, but Runkle's been on twice. So like, that makes me think that he's going to become kind of like a regular. And I think Joel even mentioned that. It just sucks because I've just like, with me doing so much of my own streaming between recaps and live streaming, and then also teaching violin lessons, like, I hate it. Like, I miss STS so much. I barely have time to, it's like, I don't have time to watch my favorite YouTube channels anymore because it's like, I would normally be watching them, but instead I'm doing the things. So, like, you know what I mean? So like, it sucks. Like, you know, I'll catch part of a recap from like Laura, or Runkle or whatever, like some of EDB's coverage here and there. But like, man, it's so funny. It's like, I just don't have time. And then like with STS too, like every now and again, I'll like pop in the chat, like, just to say hi, but I can't actually watch the show, or I'll watch it on replay parts of, but it's like, I just don't have the time to watch like an entire show. So, anyway, miss you guys at STS, love y'all. But yeah, for anyone who is, who hasn't checked STS out, definitely do. It's a great time, especially like I said, because you get to see more of Runkle and some other law tubers they have on there. They always have the best guests. They usually have three guests on. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 4, but it's usually 3. So, yeah, the pictures though are not in the right place. The pictures they're showing us do not jive with what we see in the video of where the damage would be. So,
Yeah, so Kit Smith is saying we've seen the 2-pixel audios put up the close up and the more wide of the back, but yeah, the quality's not great. Well, I don't know if you're being like facetious, but I don't know. I hate it because like I miss STS and like I don't know. I don't want people to think that like I just, I'm not abandoning STS. Like I promise. Like I think everybody there knows like that's like I'm doing this, and if I could clone myself, I would. But yeah, I mean, like I want to support STS, obviously. So, I mean, it used to be I was there for like almost every show, at least for some of it, right? And I just feel like it's been a million years. So, and it used to be that I didn't actually care to be watching any of the Karen Reed stuff, but now that they've got law tubers on, and I think most people have kind of come around to having common sense, except for that Jimmy McNutty dude. Like, I think it's a bit of a better environment. I would imagine, I don't know, because I haven't been over, I can't, I've not been in the chat, but like, I would imagine it's a better environment than it. Well, I'm very glad to hear that you feel at ease here, Blackwater. I'm happy to hear that. That makes me happy. That's good. That's good. I love that. That makes me happy. It's worth everything. Like, it's like, yeah, like I love it. The fact that you guys like being here and enjoy what we're doing and Scroll Crew is just, that's why I'm doing it for y'all.
The flagpole, because the CERT team came and shoveled an area around. So that stuff had melted first because it was a lot less snow, and then they created more piles. But as far as the general area was by the flagpole and fire hydrant. It wasn't like on the other side of the property. It was in that general area.
And just with respect to those items, were they generally found, or were they specifically found either on the grass or the roadway area?
Grass.
Asphalt or grass is basically what I'm asking.
I'm sorry. Grass area.
Now, if I could turn your attention just briefly regarding the search warrants in regard to the ring video from Mr. O'Keefe's house. Was that one search warrant or more than one search warrant that you did in respect to those ring videos?
There was a second search warrant for the ring videos for Mr. O'Keefe's house.
And if you recall, what was the general time frame that was asked for in that warrant as far as from what date to what date?
The second one, I believe, was January 30th to the 3rd or the 4th, I believe.
Was the first one essentially from the 24th to the 29th?
Yes.
Now, with respect to the video that you received in regard to the first search warrant to Ring, what kind of information did you receive from Ring as far as what beyond sort of the video itself? What, if any, other information did you receive as far as accounts or activity or anything like that?
It was just confirming that the user account was under Mr. O'Keefe's email, and then there was an Excel file where you kind of have to transcribe. So each video has about a 17-digit number associated with it, unique identifier. You take that 17-digit number, and you got to convert it using these Excel files to get the date and time.
Now, with respect
that sounds hella complicated, and like
what
it
you
should take an
received
expert and
pursuant to the
not
search
an idiot
warrant
to
from
be doing
Ring, is
it.
there any kind of activity log? And what I mean by that, what, if any, information did you receive as far as what sort of devices or how many different devices were able to access that footage?
Yeah, I wasn't able to obtain a activity log of who was using the device, what device was accessing the system. Something, if someone logged in, I was not provided with any record of who was logging in on what day or time.
Now, are you familiar with the term, just as far as videos are concerned, or electronic devices, what's referred to as a digital footprint?
Yes.
Now, with respect to some of these, or the Ring videos in totality that you received and that you also viewed pursuant to the app on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, were there certain time periods where you would have expected to see video in which there was no?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury sort of when those time periods were?
So the Ring camera above Mr. O'Keefe's garage, pretty sensitive, so it does not have Miss Reed arriving back at Mr. O'Keefe's house. Around 12:34 a.m. is approximately was when she should have arrived. The only video, there's a gap from approximately 11:45 p.m. on the 28th to about 5:07 a.m. on the 29th when Miss Reed's backing out and never has her pulling into the garage.
All right.
And there's also a second video of Miss Roberts, Miss McCabe, and Miss Reed looking at the broken taillight in the morning.
I'm just pausing real quick. This pisses me the fuck off. So do you guys remember what came out with Cross with Yuriy? Remember how much Jackson hammered him about these ring videos over and over again? And he finally said it. Yuriy did on Cross. Like, he was asking him, like, who all, like, what did you get that showed who accessed the app or who accessed the accounts, right? And like who had access to it or whatever. And like finally he said it verbatim, like he said it point blank, like, yeah, there was no evidence that Karen Reed had any access to the accounts. She didn't have the password. She didn't log into the app. She didn't unlock his phone. Like, she had no access to it. And so it basically, that whole thing about these missing ring videos, if you go back and listen to that part of Cross from Yuriy, that whole debate about did Karen delete any ring footage is completely quashed, that she did it. So here's why this pisses me off, because if she didn't delete it, the only other people who had access to that, because John O'Keefe was deceased, he couldn't have done it. The only other people who could have done it are these fuckers. And yet Lally is asking these questions again with him, trying to insinuate, right, that she did it. Right. But the thing is like the activity log would have showed it. Like that, he really made sure to try to make that clear that the activity log would have shown if she had access to it, and it didn't show that. So, and then you have him talking about the key numbers and the long string of this and that, and and it's just like, and also, I think Jackson also asked Yuriy as well, like, who's the only other person who had access to those ring videos, and he was like Trooper Proctor. So this is, and of course, it's only these key moments that are missing. It's not like random times when she's going out for delivery to get food or like whatever the fuck, right? It's only these crucial moments, right? Insane.
What, if any, follow-up or inquiry did you make of Ring in regard to those missing videos?
I inquired several different times as far as if a video is deleted, is there some type of a record?
That was it.
That's a great point, right? Because if Karen didn't, if it's unlikely that Karen deleted them, I mean, I would say that it seems like she couldn't have, right? Then, barring some sort of glitch, which wouldn't make any sense considering we have all the, that ring footage is some of the clearest and most like reliable footage we have. It's better than the freaking waterfall bar. Not to mention, we have, okay, think about what's missing, right? We have footage from the Lally port that's missing. That one video has one section alone that's missing is like, what was it? 46 minutes or something? That huge chunk is missing from the law. And then there's other smaller parts as well. We're also missing all of the rest of the surveillance footage from the police department from when Brian Higgins was there. All of it is gone. We're missing, so there was some other footage that was missing that came out with that dude from the city doing the city records. And there's these specific moments from John O'Keefe's ring camera that are missing. So what's more likely here, right? Like, I don't know, man. So it's a great point, right? Because you're exactly right, Kitsmits. If they had seen that and seen that it was actually beneficial because it showed what they wanted with the taillight, then they wouldn't have deleted it, right? Right. I mean, I think I 100% believe there's Brady violations that have been going on here. We've talked about that before. So they're arguing that Karen Reed deleted them to save herself, but it's also the footage they need to disprove the prosecution's theory. Absolutely. Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Yeah, even if you ignore the whole thing about the access logs and stuff like that, that's a great point. That logically, why would Karen want to delete? Yeah, right. So,
His inquiry, but next question, I'll allow
good
that.
point, Kitsmith.
Now, as far as that
Yeah,
term
I
that you
know.
used before,
Right.
as far as a digital imprint, can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean?
Essentially, a digital footprint is if, a video is created, it's going to leave some type of a record in the archives.
And what, if any, information did you receive from Ring as far as their videos system is concerned in regard to a digital footprint?
Objection.
Not what anybody told you, but what you received.
That if a video is deleted,
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Move to strike.
I'm going to strike that.
Upon your further inquiry of Ring, were you ever able to obtain any video from those specific sections where you anticipated video would be?
no.
From the witnesses that you spoke with, along with other troopers that were present with you, who, if any, of those witnesses had you met, or did you know prior to the interview that you conducted?
Yeah, so all the witnesses that I had interviewed, the only individuals that I know or had met prior to this investigation was Julie, Chris Albert, and Colin Albert.
And how is it that you knew Julie Albert, Christopher Albert, and Colin?
So my sister, Courtney, her friend growing up, Jillian's sister's Julie. My sister got to know Julie Albert, Julie Daniels is her maiden name, through her friend Jillian. Julie married Chris Albert. So my sister got to know Chris through Jillian and Julie. And then years down the road, my sister had Julie babysit my nephew. Julie would come from time to time and pick up my nephew from school. So that's how they kind of became friendly. And on occasion, they would be over my sister's house or at my parents' backyard, Julie and Chris and their kid Colin, and I would happen to be there.
Now, obviously, you grew up in Canton, and your sister did as well.
Yes,
And your sister's name is Courtney, is that correct?
correct.
And what is the age difference between yourself and your sister Courtney?
She's 2 years older than me.
And how close are you and your sister?
She's probably one of my best friends. We talk about 5-6 times a day about anything and everything, as far as like mostly our children.
With respect to the
So, first of all, 5 to 6 times a day is a fuck ton. But I love how he says anything, but we talk about anything and everything, and then mostly our children. So wait, what? That's one specific thing. So is it anything? Is it everything? Or is it your kids? Kitsmith says he also worked directly with Kevin Albert before, but since Kevin wasn't directly part of the night in question, it's fine. And I'm trying to remember, when do those text messages? Oh, that comes up on cross with him, doesn't it? The Kevin Albert. Oh man, that was so insane. Yeah. Kevin Albert conveniently managed to stay out of this until he comes up again in those text messages, which is insanity to me.
Conversations that you have with your sister about 5 or 6 times a day, how do you have those conversations? Is it
So we're getting into some text messages.
voice call or in person or text, or if you know?
Everything, FaceTime, phone calls, text messages. We're always kind of keeping each other up to date on mainly our kids.
Again,
Julie and Christopher Albert.
again with this and that, blah, 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 mainly our kids. Okay.
When did you interview them in relation to this incident?
Sometime in February. I'd have to look at my report for the exact date.
Sometime in, say, early to mid-February?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to them, who, if
No,
any,
I still can't get over the fact that he comes in and he goes, "Good morning, Your Honor," and then "Good morning, jury." Like, what the fuck, man?
anyone
That's
else was
crazy.
present with you when you interviewed them?
Sergeant Buchanan.
And do you recall where you interviewed, where the
Wow,
interview took
that's
place?
crazy.
Yes, I was at their home.
Now, prior to this date that you went over to interview Christopher and Julie Albert, had you ever been over to that house before?
No.
Now, with respect to Christopher and Julie Albert, and Colin Albert, will throw him in there as well, how would you sort of describe your relationship with them prior to January 29th, 2022?
I'd classify it as acquaintances.
Well, I guess the main thing too.
I believe before we broke, we were talking a bit about.
Okay, like, hi, Super Planner Girl, happy to see you. So, like, I see what you're saying, but, like, I guess a part of that, okay, let me just clarify. Part of the reason I thought it was funny is because the 5 to 6 times a day isn't even the weirdest part, but, like, it's the fact that he's like, that makes sense if you stick with the, yeah, we talk about anything and everything. Then he's like, we talk about anything, everything, mostly our kids, right? But here's what the other reason it gets funnier is because wait until all times. So he says it again after that about mostly our kids, right? So he's trying to hammer. He's like, we talk about this and that, but mostly our kids. But then listen to how he tries to distance himself from freaking Colin Albert. So this makes no sense then, because he's like, oh my God, you guys. It's like, are you talking about your kids or not? Like, it's like, he's just contradicting himself. Is my point, I think.
Julie Albert and Christopher Albert, correct?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship, if any, between Julie Albert and Christopher Albert prior to January 29, 2022?
Loose acquaintances.
Loose acquaintance.
People that you knew through your sister.
Oh wait,
is that
sorry,
correct?
I got my wife
Now-
guys, because his sister. Right. Okay. Never mind. I take that back about the kids thing, because that's right. Colin Albert is not. He's just so many people. Never mind. Right. Because Colin, he's talking about Courtney Proctor, not Julie Albert. Never mind the thing about Colin then. Never mind that. So then that could be legit. I take it back. I admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong about that. I got all the women confused because there's so fucking many of them.
With regard to
Although he does distance himself from Colin, but the person he's talking to a ton is not Colin's mom. I got that mixed up. Sorry, y'all.
the
Right.
investigation that you were conducting and the interviews that you conducted, what, if any,
I didn't see
impact
that before
did those relationships have with regard to your interviews of them specifically, or the investigation in total?
Zero. Absolutely zero impact on this investigation.
And generally speaking, just as far as the participants in this text communication, who are these people to you, and how do you know them? How long have you known them? Who are they?
The members on this text thread are close friends from junior high, first grade even.
Here we go.
And the next message, sir, from
Go, guys.
10:52 p.m.
Chip, name of that BPD cop.
And Chip, who is that referring to, sir?
That is one of my nicknames I've had since maybe high school.
So a nickname that would be familiar amongst these group of friends in particular?
Yes.
And this time period when these text messages begin, sometime after 10:30 or 10:50 p.m. on January 29th, where are you and what are you doing in reference around that time period?
At this point in time, on the 29th, I'm home.
And that last text message, do you respond to that at approximately 10:53 p.m.?
Yes.
And what was your response?
John O'Keefe.
And the next message down from there, also at 10:53 p.m.?
Yes. He took custody of his sister's kids.
That's your response. There is another response above that, is that correct?
Yes.
And what does that say?
How old?
And you respond as far as he took custody of his sister's kids, correct?
Correct.
Skipping down a couple, do you see an entry at 10:53:49 p.m.?
Yes.
And that's from a 617 number, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the response there?
Oh man, that's rough.
And following that, do you respond to the earlier query as far as age?
I do.
And what did you say?
Mid-40s.
The message there sent at 10:56 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
And who's that from?
A friend who lives in Tennessee.
And what does he say in that text?
I'm sure the owner of the house will receive some shit.
And you respond at 10:56 as well as 10:57, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is it that you respond?
My first response was nope. Homeowner is a Boston cop too.
And what, if anything, were you saying, or what was the purpose of that text in regard to the homeowner?
I was just letting him know that essentially Mr. O'Keefe is a Boston cop and the homeowner was a Boston cop as well. Again, for my friend from Tennessee and myself, I hope not, but I can't see it. I responded with, she waffled him. I looked at his body at the hospital. He was banged up.
Now, as far as the next text from a 781 number, what does that say?
Did he get beat up?
And you responded to that, is that correct?
I did.
The objection's sustained as to form.
What, if any, response did you provide to that?
Nope.
Objection. The objection was to the former question and the answer. So you complete.
I'll strike it.
Thank you.
So the owner of the house was a woman cop that beat him? That's what I initially thought after talking to Canton paramedic. Then I saw the guy.
And those last two are your responses, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Now, the following text messages are from your friends, is that correct?
Yes.
What do they say?
Yeah.
Barros, focus.
I agree, kids. But I was just thinking about that actually the other day. I think it was when we were doing voir dire, because she's like, yeah, the jury's not here, blah, blah, blah. And like, but like, she's not a fan of theatrics anyway. But like, I was thinking about that because we know, like, they're taught that in freaking law school, man. They're taught that in law school. You have to hold their attention. You have to tell a story. You have to hold their attention. So it really bothers me when she says that. It's like legit, like that's incorrect. It's like wrong, right? Like the courtroom is theater. That's what every attorney always says. So, yeah, absolutely. Now, having said that, if Lally were a play, I'd be asking for my money back. So, right, Fender. Great minds think alike. Fender says not the law school Lally went to. Yeah, I'm still doubtful that he ever went to law school. Kid Smith says, I think of it like a pianist in some ways. In piano music, there's often many layers of notes playing at once. My job is to bring out the parts I want the audience to follow. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Great example. Great example. Yep. Sometimes that's true with violin, you know, when we play multiple voices at once, like for example, with Bach, but string quartet, another great example, or orchestra. But like in a string quartet, that's one of the things that's so fun about it, is because there is a lot of discussion trying to figure it out. Like, what are the important voices at the moment? And sometimes people have different opinions. And anyway, it's really great. I love string quartet. Right. No, and I agree. The judge not wanting theatrics when they're arguing just to her. Right. That's absolutely true. But also she hasn't, I think she's not said in front of the jury something about theatrics, right? Like using that word, but like, I don't know. I feel like she's definitely at times stopped them from things that were theatrical, but she used other words, maybe.
What does she waffle to mean? What's the story? I responded, she hit him with her car.
And the she that you're referring to there, who is that?
Miss Reed. My friend in Tennessee states, okay, that's fucked up. I respond, intentional or not.
Right. That's right.
Then
Yes.
another response, gotcha. He was frozen in the driveway and she didn't see him, question mark. I respond, that's another animal we won't be able to prove. I follow that up. They arrived at the house together, got into an argument. She was driving and left.
Now, do you see a response toward the bottom of the page from yourself, January 29th, 2022 at 11:04 p.m.?
Yes.
And can you read that response for the jury?
Yeah, but there'll be some serious charges brought on the girl.
And what did you mean by that, sir?
That throughout the course of the day, we had compelling evidence that Miss Reed struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
And you have two responses from friends, the same friends, at the bottom of that page, 2537, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what are those responses?
Keep your voice up loud, please, Trooper Proctor. Jurors can't hear you.
Yes, Your Honor. Number ending in 5051. Got to be. I can only imagine what internal affairs of the BP.
It's funny how many things you notice making these videos. Like I do. I know I say this all the time about different things. Like, for example, like how much time is wasted. And I've done other trials, as you all know, right? So like in comparison to other trials, right? The amount of time that's wasted, for example, is astonishing. And you feel it when you're watching live, but boy, I tell you what, when you're editing videos, it's even more obvious. But the other thing that is so funny is the number of times that Judge Bev says to him to keep his voice up. It's so many. I cut all of them except for
one or two where it just was in the middle of something else, so I couldn't cut it out. So like that's one. But like literally, I mean, I cut time. Y'all don't even. It's so many fucking times. It's really kind of insane. So.
Are trying to get out there. The second response, same number. She hot at least.
It was insane.
Yep. So these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. CUNT.
Objection.
Okay, Black Widow, you are so much more than just an internet random. Don't ever talk mean about yourself, please. I know. I already scolded you for that earlier. But this is the part, Fender, I think it was you who made a great suggestion that when he says this again, is he also talking to the judge? And that was so astute. I probably timestamped that when we watched this live. But this is, let's all just pay attention to this. I'm going to rewind it just a second. Let's just pay attention to this because I think you're onto something here. The way he says it when he has to say the actual word, it is interesting. So here we go.
Yes, Your Honor. Number ending in 5051. Got to be. I can only imagine what internal affairs of the BPD are trying to get out there. The second response, same number. She hot at least. Yep. So these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. CUNT.
Objection.
So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Cunt.
See how you guys?
Yeah, she's a babe.
Did you
Weird
guys
fault.
see that? He doesn't actually. So the thing that's interesting, he doesn't actually say the whole text again, right? With the word, he doesn't. Instead, he just says it, and his head. I'm gonna rewind it one more time. His head. He looks. It kind of goes in her direction. A sec. It's interesting. Look. Let's listen one more time. Just that bit.
Yes, Your Honor. Number ending in 5051. Got to be. I can only imagine what internal affairs of the BPD are trying to get out there. The second response, same number. She hot at least. Yep. So these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. CUNT.
Objection.
So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Cunt. Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass.
Incredible. It is so quick.
And sir, what is it that you were referring to there, or why would you text that?
These were, from all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. Is talking about the homeowner, Mr. Albert. I had mentioned the compelling evidence against Miss Reed at this point indicated that Mr. Albert had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death.
That's not the question.
The rest of the unprofessional and regrettable comments are something.
It's very subtle. So it's just a little like a tilt. It's the way he says it so quickly without giving the rest, without saying the full text. And it's just like a little nod. Maybe it's not his head. Maybe it's just his eyes. We can watch it one more time. It's hard to explain. It's one of those things like, I guarantee you one of the fancy body language people could explain it better than me as to why it seems like he's gesturing kind of towards Judge Bev, right? If that makes sense. So yeah, so Fender says he still thinks he's directing it to the judge. Yeah, it is. It's kind of, it's the way he says it combined with there's something that he's doing like with his head or his eyes maybe. And then also like the quick response and then not actually reading the full text. Like reading the full text is what he's actually supposed to be doing. That puts it into context. It's like he wants an excuse to just say the word by itself. So that's why it seems a little bit weird. Okay, I hear you.
Thing I'm not proud of, and I shouldn't have wrote in a private or any type of setting.
He looks so sorry, doesn't he, guys?
And there's a photograph that's shared within this text
And that's
communication.
another thing. We're going to hear him make these like excuses. Never once does he say it was wrong. Never once does he say I regret it. Never once does he say I apologize. Never once does he say, if you listen to the languaging, it's really interesting because there's nothing genuine about it. Good night, Candace. We love you. It did feel venomous. Yes.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And who is depicted in that photograph that was shared within the group text?
It's Miss Reed being escorted out of the State Police Milton Barracks. Okay. Number ending in 4146. Question is that chick a smoke? Again, 4146 question mark. I respond EH. I respond again, nut bag.
Super Planner Girl, thank you for mentioning that. I completely forgot, and I meant to say something about it, and I completely forgot. We have not talked about that yet, so we can. I will also say, too, the other thing about this dude is that I think it's pretty clear that where he stands when it comes to his views on women, right? Because think about how we know how he talks about Karen Reed. We know how he talks about the medical examiner. So I think it wouldn't be that far-fetched also if that's just his. And also there's the example about his wife with cooking dinner thing. And he makes some sort of snide comment about that with his sister. I know we talked about that when it happened live. I don't think I think I actually did not include that text just to try to, again, prioritize certain things for the recap that I know we talked about during the lives. But there was that comment about his wife making dinner. So, Judge Bev having just admonished him, I don't know. It wouldn't be that far-fetched to me if he has certain views about her just because she's a woman, among other things. But
as Chief would say.
yes, absolutely. The misogynistic kit. Yes. Thank
I
you.
also respond with,
Well
she's
said.
got a leaky balloon knot, leaks poo.
And what, if anything, is that in reference to, sir?
Again, to misread some medical conditions there. Again, unprofessional comments I should not have made, and that I'm not proud of.
As far as attitudes expressed within these text messages and other text messages, what, if any, impact did that have as far as your investigation was concerned regarding this?
These juvenile, unprofessional comments have zero impact on the facts and the evidence and the integrity of this investigation. They said these are unprofessional comments, but they absolutely do not detract from the integrity of the investigation or the facts and evidence of it. I texted my sister at work, "What's up?" She responds, "What? Why?" I respond, "Oh, just found it frozen to death on a front lawn in Canton this morning. Actually just interviewed Jen McCabe, said she knows you."
And the knows you, who are you referring to?
My sister.
And how did your sister respond to that?
Cut the shit. I responded, "You." It was a typo correction with my response to you. She responded, "Yeah, she knows Jack very well. She's really good friends with Julie." My sister continues on. Her sister is married to Brian Albert. My sister asks, "You still working?" ? I says, yeah, gonna be out for a while. Homicide.
And as far as your answers to those questions, or as far as your communications that you had with your sister at this time on the afternoon of January 29th, what were those in regard to, or why were you communicating that to your sister?
At that time, it was just kind of in the news. I was just kind of letting her know I was out working. Obviously, didn't share anything specific. I wouldn't share anything specific on cases with my family or anyone. It was just kind of an overall innocent conversation. All right. My sister starts off, "The Canton thing is a homicide." I respond, "This is at 3 in the afternoon on the 29th. Don't say a word to anyone." She said, "Of course not." I respond, "In the very least, it's suspicious." She responds, "This is your livelihood." And then I would never miss with that. 3:07, I respond, "Julie and Chris were at the bar with the victim and girlfriend. Got to interview them."
So I'm just catching up on y'all's comments. So Kit Smith saying this is just like when Murdaugh said, yeah, I took the money. He said, yeah. By the way, for anyone who missed it, we were talking earlier about the Buster lawsuit too. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Blackwater. I know it's horrifying. You know, I wonder though too, like if, I don't know, I could see her wanting to set the record straight on a couple things. I think that's even what she says something about as well in that interview. Yeah, Fender makes a good point. Remember when Depp apologized for his texts? Yeah, good point. Hold on, it scrolled too fast. Yeah, that's a good point. She can set the record straight after court. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, you guys. It's an unnecessary gamble. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. There's a couple times that I've pointed out so far in the case, like maybe 2 or 3 times, I would say, where there were facts that were being disputed, where I was like, only she could she might have to testify if they want to dispute those facts because she's the only one who could do it. I don't remember what they are now because it's been so long ago, but I pointed them out and I may have timestamped them, but there were a handful of times where I was like, well, this might be a reason to testify. And I think I've even heard other law tubers, like probably Runkle, say something to that effect as well. But whatever they were, clearly they weren't enough to be that significant because I don't remember them anymore now. So again, it's like, because she's got such great attorneys and also the Commonwealth case is shit, you know, it's just, there's so many facts, right? It's almost like there's so many facts that are shit for the Commonwealth and good for the, like, and so little time, you know what I mean? It's like we'd be here for a million years for them to try to go through and show all of it. So maybe they're just going to pick the most salient points. That's interesting, Fender. That's interesting. I couldn't even in my wildest imagination try to guess what they are. So that's fascinating. Yeah, that was a great point. Yep, I agree. I like that as well. Oh, Higgins stuff. Okay. You're saying that's like what the conspiracy theories are about? Oh, that's cool that you're crocheting, neato. I also crochet. Well, I haven't in a long time, but I used to crochet. Yeah, Higgins is really, I don't know, man. It's interesting. It's interesting.
I texted my sister, "What's up?"
Oh, right.
She responded, "Nothing. I just saw Julie, and she said when this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift." And I respond, "Get Elizabeth one." Elizabeth's my wife. And my sister responds, "Because I guess her and Chris were friends with John, and she's so proud of you for leading this." And then she writes, "Elizabeth, question mark?" I respond with, "She's been stuck with the kids for the last 10 nights. My sister responded with,
Yeah, I remember there was, and I do remember it was one of the times I did mention it was during Brian Higgins' testimony. I don't feel like I feel like it wasn't about like their flirting, right? Or was it? I feel like there was also something else that came out around there, but it was like more substantial to the case. Because in the end, the flirting doesn't really matter or shouldn't matter, right? It's just a distraction.
Yeah, but she knew what life is like married to a cop.
And sir, as far as the gift that's mentioned, as far as Julie Albert, is that anything that you have received at any point in time?
I never received a gift. I never asked for a gift. My wife never received a gift.
That's bullshit because he's like, get my wife a gift. That's asking for a gift, you asshole.
She never asked for a gift.
Fucking hell, man.
This is me speaking on June 9th, 2022 at 4:56 p.m. I text my wife, waiting to lock this whack job up.
And
do you mean you? Because you're the whack job.
I'm referring to the arrest after Miss Reed was indicted by the grand jury.
And again, as far as the terminology that you use in that text message,
when Proctor gets indicted by a grand jury, can we call him a whack job, please?
Why is it?
Again, unprofessional messages I should not have sent. I don't have an explanation other than they're regrettable and it's something I'm not proud of, the language I used.
You went on the document.
I
So
regret it.
before I get into
They're
that,
regrettable.
though, if I could turn your attention back to some of the comments on the language used in the January 29th and February 1st or 2nd text communications among your friend group. With reference
Lally.
to that particular time frame and the language that you used, what sort of information had you gathered to that point, and why would you say or use that particular language particularly in your descriptions of the defendant?
So this is, 16, 18 hours later, and we had conducted multiple interviews.
Speak up.
Conducted multiple interviews. We knew
Yeah, I
Mr.
know, right?
O'Keefe never went into Fairview Road. We knew there was one shoe at the scene, one shoe at the hospital. Mr. O'Keefe's, based off Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, Miss Reed's statements when Sergeant Buchanan and I interviewed her, her broken taillight, the missing taillight, some taillight pieces found at the scene, the compelling evidence pointing directly at Miss Reed that she struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle,
But yeah,
led me to make those comments. Whether
I think it could be either way. I think that he probably calls, like, he even says nutbag, as Chief says. Like he said, like in other words, it sounds like there's a established dynamic within this police department and within the troopers that's just how they all talk about women, right? It's like that's been an established, like, toxic, what do they call it, toxic workplace environment or whatever, right? But like, because there's no women there, it's fine for them. So like that's how they all talk. Like that's their attitude, right? It's just like that's the way they talk about women. So I think that both are true. Like I think that that's just the normal day-to-day language. But also, I think it's also entirely possible that's him further dehumanizing her after already making fun of her medical condition, but to because of the Section 12 thing with like her mental health, right? Also, I mean, equally.
like I said, they weren't professional comments, but based on the day's investigation, it was clear that Miss Reed had struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Beyond the professional relationship you have with yourself, between yourself and Trooper DeChico, how would you characterize your relationship, generally speaking?
We're buddies, we golf together, hang outside of work, our kids play together, so I'd say, we're friends. I start out without a doubt, he's got diarrhea of the mouth too. Trooper DeChico, rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. I respond, Yuriy and I had 2 conference calls with her, sent her numerous photos, etc. We laid out the entire case for her. Trooper DeChico responds, not good enough, should have had me or Jeff do it. I respond, if you two did it, she would have made it accidental or natural causes.
This sounds like it's a commonplace thing, right? Like they all have their own jokes about it. It's so commonplace that they're joking about it and everyone knows what they're talking about. Like this is a normal thing. They're always going in and trying to influence the medical examiner. It's just, this for me was a huge game changer, man, in this entire thing. When this happened live, I was freaking out because it's like, oh, okay. Like this is to me where it becomes more a systemic issue. I'm just standing here shaking my head. I know you guys can't see me, so I'm just telling you. Oh yeah, we're gonna get to hear that tonight. Don't worry, guys. This quote here from Kit Smits. You weren't quoting Alan Jackson. Quote, you weren't so much objectively considering her as objectifying her. Yeah, we're gonna get to hear that.
And can you explain the context of those communications, or what exactly is it that you and Trooper DeChico are talking about in that communication?
So like I said, the ME stands for medical examiner. They conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. I guess I'll address the conference calls Sergeant Buchanan and I had with the medical examiner. The doctor had some questions as to the facts and evidence, kind of what had transpired, which is common. Even if it's a homicide, I've had many calls with the medical examiner's office, even if it's a suicide or overdose. Always with a homicide, the doctor wants to know what transpired. Trooper DeChico and myself, we kind of like to bust each other's chops, go back and forth. So that's what he meant by saying rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. The original determination came back. What?
Sustained. Next question, Mr. Lally.
Now, as far as attending the autopsy, is that something that typically someone within your office would do, within your unit would do with regard to any sort of death investigation?
Yes.
And do you know who attended the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe in this specific case?
Trooper O'Keefe.
And so as far as Trooper DeChico's reference to you not going in, or Sergeant Buchanan not going in, is that what you believe Trooper DeChico was referring to in that message?
Objection.
Sustained as to the form.
You indicated that you and Trooper DeChico bust each other's chops. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And can you describe a little more, expound upon that as far as the nature of your relationship and sort of the text messages that you exchange in this and then other communications that you have?
Basically just, kind of needling each other, and him doing that is by saying, texting me, rookie move, not going into meeting with the medical examiner. So that's a perfect example of him kind of just needling me, which we do on a daily basis.
And as far as your interpretation of that, did you interpret that as a serious comment or something said in jest?
Oh,
Yeah, I interpreted that as a typical joke from Trooper DeChico.
Dr. Wolf.
So I started out, of course, it's undetermined.
Sorry.
She was
For anyone who's like, wait, Troop, okay. In the chat, we're talking about Dr. Wolf from the voir dire is a good look. I was saying he's a good looking dude, not Trooper Proctor, just to be clear on that. Because I didn't pull up a comment. I didn't pull up a comment. I just was talking, and I just want to make sure there's no confusion there because he was very handsome. Yes.
whack job. Trooper DeChico responds, "Dear God, WTF, what the hell is inconclusive about the whole thing?"
And as far as your indication there, as far as she was a whack job, who are you referring to there?
Miss Reed.
Nope. Medical examiner.
Now, as far as the undetermined of what you're talking about, what is sort of the content or the context of this conversation?
That would be the manner of death was determined to be undetermined by the medical examiner's office.
And so I ask you again, as far as your reference there in the bottom of the first page, as far as she was a whack job, whom do you believe you're referring to there?
Again,
Reed or the medical examiner?
Miss Reed.
You see a message sent from Trooper DeChico on August 17th, 2022 at 9:42 p.m.
Yes.
And is that an image contained on the next page, which is 2683?
Yes, it is.
And what is the image of?
That is a picture of Mr. Yannetti. Appears to be from quite some time ago.
If you could just read the three responses from yourself, sir.
Okay, so these came from me. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly hate him.
So far.
Now, with reference to the investigation at this point, when you're talking about his client's phone, who are you referring to?
Miss Reed.
And with
Yeah.
regards,
What is I don't know what that is. Acotar. So there's Actar. That was the agency they came from. What's a good Cassian? You guys, I don't know what these things are. Oh.
to the phone at that point, can you describe for the jury sort of what's going on during this time period of August 17th, 2022 in regard to Ms. Reed's phone?
So after obtaining a search warrant for Miss Reed's phone, we weren't able to extract any data from it until August of 2023. Troopers in my office knew I was going through the phone that evening. I was most interested in location data, text messages, Google searches. That was the update I gave the troopers in the office. It was a distasteful joke. I should have gave a proper update instead of that. I wasn't able to go through the phone as thoroughly as possible because I came across some a text between an attorney and Miss Reed, so I had to stop going through her phone, and I made my supervisor aware of those communications.
Now, just in reference to what you had just said, this is in August of 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
So after a search warrant is obtained for the defendant's phone, where did it go? You indicated you gave it to Trooper Garino, and where did it go from there?
Trooper Garino essentially hooks it up to a device called Gray Key, where it tries every possible combination passcodes in order to access the data contained in the phone.
And at that time, when you retrieved it pursuant to the search warrant, you didn't have the passcode to the defendant's phone, is that correct?
Correct.
So that device is designed to sort of go through numbers and try to find a combination to get into the phone, correct?
Correct.
And so from the time that you had seized it in late January or on January 29th, 2022, until this date in August of 2022, had you been able to get into the phone or see anything in the phone in those intervening months or 7 months between January and August?
No.
And so then at this time that you're sending this text message in August of 2022, is that around the time that you were first able to access the phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Yes, that was the first time we were able to have access to the phone.
And with reference to your access to the phone, were you looking for nudes or anything like that in regard to the defendant?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Like I stated, I was most interested in Miss Reed's location data, text communications, Google searches, things of that nature. More evidence contained within the phone.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
All right, Mr. Jackson, go right ahead.
Thank you. Trooper Proctor, in the summer of 2022, August 17th specifically, you were sitting at your desk, presumably alone at your office,
Good evening, Gatorman. Happy to see you, my
at about
friend.
10 p.m. at night, going through my client's personal cell phone.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
As a matter of fact, you were sitting there texting with your friends and colleagues at Massachusetts State Police about you going through her personal cell
get your
phone.
popcorn.
Is that right?
Correct, sir.
And that included Trooper DeChico, is that right?
DeChico, yes, sir.
Trooper Fanning, Trooper Buchnick, Trooper Moore, and Trooper Kotskowski.
Kakowski.
Tell me that again?
Kakowski.
Kakowski.
Yes, sir.
All right, all the consonants are silent. Fair enough. Trooper Fanning and Trooper
Blackwater,
Buchnick
yes.
are
That's
your
right.
supervisors.
You guys, so y'all, Blackwatter's fasting, so be careful what you talk about in the chat. How long do you have to fast for, Blackwater? But water's great. What I mean, you know,
Yes.
y'all know me in water.
And you were bragging to all 5 of them that you were going through Karen Reed's cell phone about 9:45 at night.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Is that right?
I think you know what's funny?
No, I wasn't bragging, sir.
How did you refer to Miss Reed in that text exchange where you informed them that you were going through her phone?
He's face.
I use regrettable language.
I know I commented on this when we covered it live, but dude, his face is so red. Like he's pissed. I mean, as he should be. I love it.
Which I said going through his retarded client's phone right now.
Mad.
Trooper
Yeah,
Proctor,
what his face is.
Trooper DeChico had sent you a photograph of my colleague, Mr. Yannetti, correct?
Yes,
You see that, gentleman?
I do, sir.
Is that the photograph that you received?
Yes.
Mr. Young
Is that what you
Yannetti.
referred to on direct examination with Mr. Lally about receiving a
Bring
photograph
chicken.
from of Mr. Yannetti?
Correct.
And then your response was what?
I hate that man. I truly hate that man.
Your response was, I'm going through his retarded client's phone right now, correct?
Yes, after the picture, sir, yes.
Who's the retarded client?
I was referring to Miss Reed, again, unprofessional language.
Fucking
I'm
hell.
asking who you were referring to.
Miss
I
Reed.
want an explanation.
I'm mad.
Who was it you were referring to as retarded?
Miss Reed.
Karen Reed, the woman sitting to my left.
Yes, sir.
The subject of your investigation as a professional, correct?
Yes, sir.
As an unbiased, objective investigator, the person that you were investigating, you referred to your bosses as retarded, correct?
Again, poor language on my part.
Shut the
Poor
fuck
language
up.
is one way to put it. Completely offensive is another way to put
Thank
it.
you.
Right?
Objection.
Say what we're all thinking. No.
I'm going to sustain that, Mr.
Shut
Jackson.
the fuck up, Lolly.
After you referred to
No.
my client
This is
as
just
retarded,
so necessary right now. By the way,
then you just
real quick,
look at the color of his tie. I had not noticed Jackson's tie. The tie is superb.
Decided to make a comment about Mr. Yannetti, her lawyer, correct?
Correct.
And what did you say about Mr. Yannetti again?
I hate that man. I truly hate that man.
I hate that man.
That's
I
what I
truly
have to
hate
say
him.
about you,
Correct?
Proctor.
Correct.
You didn't say I dislike him, I disagree with him. You said I hate him, correct?
Correct, sir.
That's a visceral response to someone who's just doing a job, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Sure. Let me ask it this way. Were you upset or annoyed or pissed off that Karen Reed had gotten representation, legal representation, to represent her?
No, not at all. That's her right.
Well, let me ask you this. In August of 2022, you said you absolutely hate it, correct?
I don't know if I used absolutely. Yeah, I didn't use absolutely, sir.
You used truly, correct?
Truly, yes.
How do you feel about him now? He's sitting right there.
I still don't care for him, no.
I'll let it stand.
What did you tell your colleagues that you were looking for as you sat at almost 10 p.m. at night on a Wednesday night, August 17th, 2022, looking through Karen Reed's phone?
I didn't tell them I was looking through anything. They knew I was going through Miss Reed's phone. I provided a inappropriate joke as an update. They knew I was going through location data, text messages, Google searches. But like I had mentioned earlier, I had to stop.
Except Trooper Proctor, none of that really professional sounding stuff ended up in your comments to your bosses.
Again, it was a poor joke.
Is that yes or no?
Did not know.
It did not.
No,
As a
sir.
matter of fact, what did you write after you talked about going through the, quote, retarded client's phone?
Objection.
I missed
Allow
that
it.
somehow.
No nudes so far.
No nudes so far, correct?
Correct.
And you said that to your bosses.
Yes, sir.
You were looking for naked photographs of Miss Reed on a Wednesday night as you sat in your office at 9:44 p.m., correct?
No, not correct.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked for naked photos of a male suspect
Great
that you were
question.
investigating?
I don't look for naked photos on anyone's phones.
But you said you were looking for nudes of Miss Reed,
Like I had
correct?
said, Mr. Jackson, it was an inappropriate joke.
So this is a citizen. She's a woman. You were supposed to be objectively investigating. Does your text message to your colleagues at Massachusetts State Police reflect an objective
I have to say, he's the one witness that we don't have to try to find anything nice about. That's an exception to the Lost Pearls tradition. So feel free to make comments like this. Thank you, Super Planet Girl. He has bad posture. Agreed.
investigation of a citizen?
Objection.
You can get part of that question and ask it again.
Do you believe that your text messages were reflective of an objective investigator?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Do you believe that, Trooper Proctor?
I believe poor jokes have, in unprofessional language, have no bearing on the integrity and the facts and physical
Fuck
evidence
you.
of this case.
Sorry, I can't.
It's not that they don't have any
Here's the
bearing
thing.
on the
I know I can speak personally right now to a visceral reaction because I don't ever get mad. Dude, I can't. I have a visceral reaction of hatred towards this dude on the stand. Just saying.
facts and integrity. It's that they have no place in a professional investigation because it shows bias.
Thank you, kids.
Right?
Nice test.
Objection.
So I have to sustain that as asked. Go ahead and ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating Karen Reed as objectifying her.
There
Correct?
it is.
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Isn't that right?
Rephrase the question, please.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating her as objectifying her in those moments, correct?
Again, Mr. Jackson, it was a poor choice of words and a joke
Oh my
that I
God.
should not have texted
You know
out.
what?
But
The way he says that, as again, Mr. Jackson, the nerve though, because that is like so patronizing. It's bad enough the way he's answering, but like to say like he pauses after drinking his water as if he's just like couldn't have a care in the world. It's like drinking his stupid water, which I know when this was happening live, I kept saying, someone take his water away from him. He doesn't deserve it. But he's like, again, Mr. Jackson, like so condescending, man.
from the start of the investigation, We didn't know what we had.
And your Trooper Proctor, your point in saying no nudes so far to your colleagues in Massachusetts State Police was to suggest that you were looking for nudes and you'd update them when you found them, correct?
Incorrect.
Well, let me ask you a question.
You want me to rewind it?
Did you find any nudes of
Again.
Karen Reed?
I didn't go through the photos, sir.
Did you find any nudes of Karen Reed?
I didn't go through the photos, sir.
You weren't successful in your quest.
I came across text messages from Miss Reed to another attorney on January 29th, so I had to stop looking through her phone.
So you got
He has a lot of problems.
sidetracked before you could get to the naked pictures. Is that what you're saying?
Sustained.
Jackson.
To be clear, when you sent those text messages
You
on that group chat,
got it. Your wish is my command.
those text messages included, as we
Y'all,
said, or as you
Y'all,
said,
I'm here to make y'all's dreams come true. So let's hear this again for Fender, our friend in the chat. There he is with his stupid water. Take it away from him. Take that water away. Give it to Black Widow because she's fasting and loves her water.
To sustain that as asked, go ahead and ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
you weren't so much as objectively investigating Karen Reed as objectifying her, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Isn't that right?
Rephrase the question, please.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating her as objectifying her
With water.
in those moments, correct?
Again, Mr. Jackson, it was a poor choice of words and a joke that I should not have texted out, but from the start of the investigation, we didn't know what we had.
And your Trooper Proctor, your point in saying no nudes so far to
I
your
know.
colleagues in Massachusetts
I
State
know.
Police was to suggest that you were looking for nudes and you'd update them when you found them, correct?
Oh, man.
Incorrect.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you find any nudes of
Again.
Karen Reed?
I didn't go through the photos, sir.
Did you find any
You can
nudes
be as
of
mean
Karen
as you
Reed?
want.
I didn't go through the photos, sir.
You weren't successful in your quest.
I came across text messages from Miss Reed to another attorney on January 29th, so I had to stop looking through her phone.
So you got sidetracked before you could get to the naked pictures of Miss Reed. Is that what you're saying?
Sustained.
To be clear, when you sent those text messages on that group chat, those text messages included, as we said, or as you said, not one but two of your supervisors, correct?
Correct.
Were you ever reprimanded for your conduct in sending that text message?
Objection.
So that's sustained. Do we need to go to sidebar based on what you told me earlier?
We do not.
Okay,
I'll
so,
ask it a different way.
okay.
Did either Trooper Fanning or Trooper Buchanan dress you down in a responsive text message in that text
I don't know what we
thread
talked about that
for doing
before.
something so abhorrent as looking for nudes or referring to nudes of a female suspect or subject of your investigation? Did that ever happen?
Not that I can recall.
As a matter of fact, in reference to one of the text messages in this same string, your boss, Yuriy Buchanan, actually responded to the photo of Mr. Yannetti, didn't he?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
He did, sir.
After you received the photo, that's when you said, I'm, quote, funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. Is that right?
Objection.
Allow this, but not too many more.
Sure. Is that correct? It's on the top of page
Yes, sir.
685.
That's correct.
And Yuriy Buchanan liked that comment. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. Didn't he?
I see you laughed at an image here, sir. I can't tell if he liked that comment, sir.
May I approach?
Yes.
I don't know if it's just because it's faded or... Yeah, my copy's faded.
Top 2685. You can use my copy if that helps.
All right. Thank you.
What do you see on the top of that page?
That Sergeant Buchanan liked it.
Like what?
The going through his retarded client's phone, sir.
So your supervisors at Massachusetts State Police not only didn't ride you for making comments like this, he encouraged it.
Objection.
Sustained.
Trooper Proctor, this is your direct chain of command. Is that right? Yuriy Buchanan?
Yes, sir.
Did you believe that your conduct was a misuse of your authority and power as you were going through her phone in August of 2022?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, I had a warrant signed by a district clerk, Stoughton District Clerk, to go through Miss Reed's phone. I don't think it was an abuse of power. I had every right to go through that phone.
Did the warrant say anything about looking for nudes of my client?
Objection.
Did it
No, Your
say anything about that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, next question.
So that would be an abuse of the power that was given to you by the court, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Trooper Proctor, you'd agree that the hallmark of any good investigation, as you've been taught and others in Massachusetts State Police have been taught, is that the investigation and the investigator have to be fair. They have to be impartial. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Meaning that the investigation has to be free of conflicts, right?
Yes, sir.
The investigator has to be free of conflicts, right?
Yes,
The investigation has to be free of bias. Is that right?
correct.
You can't be biased against the person that you're investigating. That would compromise the entire thing, wouldn't it?
Yes,
Basically, you follow the evidence. You're supposed to follow the evidence wherever it takes you, right?
correct.
Good or bad, top to bottom, just follow the evidence and report it back. That's how an investigation is supposed to be run, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And these are things that you learn early on at Massachusetts State Police Academy and then in your detective training. Isn't that right?
It is.
And literally, it's part of an oath that you took at the academy that you will, quote, faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent on you as a Massachusetts State Police trooper, right?
Yes, sir.
You swore that oath.
I did.
I love mentioning
When you start an
those.
investigation-
That's a good move right there.
Everybody in that investigation should be treated exactly the same. Don't you believe that's true?
Correct.
Everybody, have you ever heard the phrase, everybody's a suspect until they're not? Right?
I've-
Objection.
Sustained.
It's especially important early in an investigation before
Yeah, I
all
thought
of the
Yuriy
facts
was
are
way
known,
first. You guys, y'all know that.
that the investigator is not compromised by bias or prejudice, right?
Correct.
Most important early in the investigation, because that's when the most things are up in the air. There's the cloud, the fog of not knowing exactly what the truth is, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
In other words, Trooper Proctor, you don't get to pick a suspect and then try to find evidence to support your choice, right?
Correct.
But in this case, it's exactly what you did, isn't it?
Absolutely not.
All right, Mr. Jackson, why don't we end for today?
This is
Okay.
as good a place as any. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
So this is a group text or a group chat with you and 8 of your high school friends about this investigation, correct?
Yes.
Trooper Proctor, you never thought when you were engaged with these other 8 individuals that this particular set of chats would ever become public, did you?
No, I do not.
So you were willing to tell just a few hours into an investigation of the death of a Boston police officer, you were willing to tell a bunch of high school buddies details about the investigation, including the name of the victim, correct?
At this point, it's 16 hours later, sir. Not a few.
The nerve.
16 is
the nerve.
a few hours, correct? I'm not talking about days later.
It was about 16 hours later, sir.
Correct. And you identified John O'Keefe as the Boston police officer who is fallen in the yard at 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
You also informed, if you will skip to page 2529, you also informed these same folks, these same high school buddies.
Which objection, Kit Smith? Sorry, I'm so distracted with how much I hate Trooper Proctor. Which objection? I can rewind it just a second and see. Was it before they started the day? The new day? New day. A new day. A new doo-doo-doo. Sorry, you guys.
Would ever become public, did you?
Okay, I'm rewinding it.
No, I do not.
So you were willing to tell just a few hours into an investigation of the death of a Boston police officer, you were willing to tell a bunch of high school buddies details about the investigation, including the name of the victim, correct?
At this point, it's 16 hours later, sir. Not a few.
16 is a few hours, correct? I'm not talking about days later.
It was about 16 hours later, sir.
Correct. And you identified John O'Keefe as the Boston police officer who was fallen in the yard at 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
You also informed, if you will skip to page 25.
I mean, whatever it was, narrative is probably a good guess, or speculation, or argumentative.
529. You also inform these same folks, these same high school buddies,
We're
that,
asked and
quote,
answered.
all
We've
the
been asked and
powers that
answered.
be want answers ASAP, correct?
Yes.
You knew, Trooper Proctor, that there was brass that wanted this case wrapped up quickly and efficiently. Isn't that right?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Is that what you were thinking?
No, the people wanted answers, sir.
They wanted it. They didn't just want answers. They wanted answers ASAP. What does ASAP mean?
That's as soon as possible.
Right. And you were texting this to your high school friends again, 16 hours into this investigation, right?
Correct.
And you knew at that time, Trooper Proctor, that this was not going to implicate in any way, shape, form, or fashion another cop, correct?
Correct.
In this text exchange at 10:56 p.m., your buddy Bird writes, "I'm sure the owners of the house will receive some shit," correct?
Correct.
How did you take that to mean? Did you take that to mean that he could get in trouble?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what my friend was getting at.
Well, you had some idea.
Yeah, I maybe.
Said the owners of the house isn't going to get any shit for this, right?
That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, you interpreted it like he's not going to get in any trouble. He's not going to be a suspect, correct?
Correct.
And he's not going to be implicated in any way. Is that right?
Correct.
And your answer was one word, correct?
Yes.
What was that word?
Nope.
And then you followed that up with an explanation as to why you said no, didn't you?
That wasn't the explanation why I said nope. I simply said homeowner was a Boston cop too, meaning Mr. O'Keefe was a Boston cop. The homeowner was a Boston cop as well.
The question that preceded your answer, nope, the homeowner's a Boston cop too, was the homeowner's going to get some shit for this, correct?
That's not what I meant with that text.
That's what you wrote.
Not what I meant, sir.
All right, let's take it in order. Question. Oh goodness, the homeowner's going to get some shit for this. Answer, nope. Next text. He's a Boston cop too. That doesn't sound like an explanation for your nope.
Blackletter.
No, that's just saying he's a
Oh,
Boston
yeah.
cop as well. Mr. O'Keefe is a
And that's
Boston cop.
why he's
Argumentative,
not
yeah.
going to get any shit. Correct, Trooper Proctor?
Well, he's not going to receive any shit, sir, because Mr. Albert, the homeowner, had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death.
And you knew this 16 hours into your investigation.
Yes.
Less than a day.
Yes.
To your satisfaction.
To my satisfaction
And
and
you
to the
hadn't
members
been
of my
to the
unit.
crime scene?
So let him finish. We didn't get the, finish
Some-
your answer?
To my satisfaction and to all the members of my unit who investigated that day.
Objection. Calls for speculation.
So I'm going to let it stand. Trooper Proctor, you have to keep your voice up, okay? Jurors need to hear you way back there.
Yes, ma'am.
The fact of the matter is, you hadn't been to the crime scene by the time you wrote this text, correct?
Correct.
You hadn't been inside the home, correct?
No.
You had you had questioned a grand total of 3 percipient witnesses at this point, correct?
Yes.
And 2 of the 3 were named McCabe, right?
Correct.
And 1 of the 3 was named Albert, correct?
Yes.
And it's against that backdrop that you wrote, nope, the homeowner's not going to get any shit because he's a cop, right?
That's not what I meant by that.
At 10:57, Bird goes on to write, he, the homeowner, must have been a puddle to accomplish that. And then he writes, who's the homeowner? And then he writes, I hope not, but I can see it. Correct?
Yes.
A puddle means drunk, correct?
That's a term for it, yes.
In other words, Bird wrote that the homeowner must have been so drunk, so wasted to have killed him. Correct?
Objection.
Do you know what that means? Do you know what that text means?
Just the puddle part, Your Honor. That term.
All right, so he can answer that.
And the puddle part means drunk or wasted, right?
Yes.
And what Bird actually wrote was, he must have been a puddle to accomplish that, correct?
That's what he wrote.
And then you write back, quote, she waffled him. I looked at his body at the hospital, right?
Correct.
You used the phrase waffled about a Boston police officer who had fallen in the snow and died in someone's yard. And you decided to use the word waffled him, correct?
Objection.
So sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Did you answer, she waffled him, I looked at his body at the hospital?
I did answer that, yes.
And then Bird questioned, she waffled him, correct?
Yes.
And then you responded, he was banged up. Is that right?
Yes.
Then a person with the phone number 0095 wrote, I thought he was drunk. Did he get beat up? You see that?
I do.
And you wrote, nope. Is that right?
Correct.
Yet again, this is before 11 o'clock at night on January 29th, 2022, some 16 hours into your investigation. Is that right?
Yes.
So before you ever went to the crime scene, before you ever went into the house, only having interviewed 3 folks, you had this case nice and wrapped up, didn't you?
Yes. Based on the evidence my office uncovered that day, the one shoot discovered at the scene, the one shoot at the hospital, Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, the broken taillight pieces underneath the snow.
Trooper Proctor, I didn't ask for an explanation. I asked, did you, in your mind, have this case wrapped up? Was it cut and dry in your mind?
Yes.
Bird then writes, so the owner of the house was a woman. Sorry, was a woman cop that beat him? Question mark. Right?
Yes.
And then you wrote, that's what I initially thought after talking to Canton paramedics. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you said, then I saw the guy, correct?
Correct.
So what you meant by that, Trooper Proctor, was according to you, based on your conversations, your initial conversations with the paramedics, the first responders, you were under the impression that this was a beating death. He'd been beaten to death, correct?
The way it was given to me, sir, was
That's
with
yes or no?
medical.
That's yes
No,
or no?
he's going to answer the question. If you want
Go
to
ahead.
withdraw the question, you can.
No, go ahead.
We entered this investigation with an open mind. It was given to me as a medical situation. And when we saw Mr. O'Keefe's body at the hospital with Sergeant Buchanan and I, we saw his injuries and we were kind of working through how these injuries occurred.
As a matter of fact, both you and Sergeant Buchanan believed that he had suffered the injuries as a result of a physical altercation based on information you received from the paramedics initially, correct?
Initially, we didn't know what we had. We knew there was some significant injuries to Mr. O'Keefe. We were still figuring out how those injuries occurred.
Well, you just testified. Initially, we didn't know what we had.
Right.
But 16 hours after the fact, you wrote the following sentence. That's what I initially thought after talking to Canton paramedics, correct?
Correct.
So initially, you did think you knew what you had, a physical altercation leading to a death, correct?
Correct.
So when you just said, initially we didn't know what we had, that wasn't quite true. You did at least have an idea of what you thought you had, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right. You were aware, initially, that John O'Keefe had suffered a 2-inch laceration to the back of his head, correct?
Yes.
That resulted in a skull fracture, correct?
Correct.
He had a laceration over his right eye, small laceration just under the eyebrow, correct?
Yes.
Had a laceration on his nose. Is that right?
Correct.
He had patterned scratches on his right arm, abrasions, scratches, correct?
Yes.
And he had no injuries below the neck.
Not that I observed, sir.
Not a single broken bone, correct?
Not that I was aware of.
Not a single fracture, correct?
Not that I was aware of.
Not a single bruise below the neck, right?
Not that I observed.
Looks a lot like a physical altercation, doesn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Bird writes, Bear, let's focus, correct?
Yes.
Who's Bear?
That's another nickname I have.
Why does he have so many nicknames?
0095 writes, what does she waffled him mean?
There we go.
And then Bird writes, what's the story, correct?
Correct.
And you wrote, she hit him with her car. Is that right?
Yes.
Have you ever seen, in your experience, have you ever seen a pedestrian who was hit by a 6,000-pound car with no bruises? Ever?
The pedestrian strikes I've seen have been at high speeds,
Enough to
60
knock
plus.
a person out of his shoe, right?
60 plus miles per hour. So I can't recall right now off the top of my head as far as injuries in the past pedestrian strikes I've attended.
Okay. So someone, you indicated on Monday, under examination by Mr. Lally, you've seen a shoe missing,
Correct.
pedestrian strikes, correct?
Yes.
Those are high-speed, extremely high-speed incidents, correct?
Yes.
60 plus miles an hour, right?
I can't recall all the pedestrian strikes I've been to as far as the miles per hour the vehicle is traveling.
Trooper Proctor, let me ask you the question again. Have you ever, yes or no, have you ever, in your experience, seen a vehicle pedestrian incident in which the pedestrian has no bruises?
Objection.
Have you seen that?
I can't recall.
Okay, next question.
After you wrote, she hit him with her car, 5051 writes, oh Jesus, and Bird writes, okay, that's fucked up, correct?
Correct.
And then you wrote what?
Intentional or not?
Intentional or not? Is that right?
Yes.
Your words.
Correct.
0095 then chimes in, gotcha. He was frozen in the driveway and she didn't see him? Question mark, correct?
Correct.
And you wrote what?
That's another animal we won't be able to prove.
That's another animal we won't be able to prove, correct?
Correct.
Trooper Proctor, you knew that there were going to be things in this case, even 16 hours into this, that you just admitted you would have zero proof of, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Did you mean by that statement
Love you, Black
that this was
Widow.
one of several
Congrats.
things that you knew we would not be able to prove?
That statement, that's another animal we won't be able to prove, references the intentional or not part.
You
We
didn't
knew-
care at that point when you wrote that, you didn't care what you could or could not prove, did you?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Isn't that what you meant?
No.
You had a narrative that you had developed, and you would pursue it no matter what the proof was. That's what you meant by that statement, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently, Mr. Chairman.
Did you mean by that, thank you, Your Honor, I didn't mean to step on your words. Did you mean by that statement that you were going to pursue this case no matter what the proof might be?
What I meant by that statement was if Miss Reed backed into Mr. O'Keefe intentionally or not.
Interestingly, though, that statement came on the heels of he was frozen in the driveway and she didn't see him. And you wrote in response to that question, that's another animal we won't be able to prove. Correct?
That's not what I was responding to. I was responding to the intentional or not part.
So you were responding to your own statement, according
Correct.
Okay. 0095 then writes, what's the name of the Canton cop living in Canton? The other one involved. Correct?
Yes.
In other words, that person was asking, tell me the name of the homeowner. Isn't that right?
Yes.
The guy that's the cop, right?
Correct.
And you ignored that question for a second time. Is that right?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, not one time, not once in this entire group chat did you disclose the name Brian Albert, did you?
I don't believe so, no.
You were actively trying to hide Brian Albert's name, at least from this conversation.
Objection.
I'll allow it. Is that what you were trying to do?
Absolutely not.
But you had no problem sharing
It's so
John O'Keefe's
believable.
name with your buddies from high school, right?
Correct.
And you had no problem sharing Karen Reed's name with your buddies from high school, correct?
I don't believe I named the defendant.
Not yet, you didn't. Later in the chat.
Okay, correct.
5051 then writes, the BPD have any jurisdiction here because it was their own? Question mark. Is that right?
Yes.
And a few texts later, if you look down a few texts, at about 11 o'clock, you see a text that starts, nah, cat.
I do, sir, yes.
You responded, quote, nah, N-A-H, nah, cat, K-A-T-T. It's the total opposite. They have to recuse themselves. Same with Canton. Correct?
That text ends as they have to recuse themselves.
How did you end that text?
Same with Canton.
Meaning Canton has to recuse itself also,
Okay.
correct?
That was my understanding.
So by 11,
Okay. So remember, guys, when we were on Direct, and it was at the beginning of Direct, and they were talking about I pointed it out about the Lally port, right? Because I was like, that's a big deal when Proctor is being questioned on Direct, and he's like, so yeah, we took her car to the Lally port in Canton, Sally Port, right? At the Canton PD. And I said, remember that because it's going to come up again on cross, that should have been a red flag to him, because that in his experience was actually the first time where Canton was getting involved. So here now it's coming out on cross that even to his buddies, he was saying from the get-go that he assumed like without question that Canton and Boston would both have been recused. So
11 p.m. on January 29th, 2022, there was no question in your mind, Trooper Proctor, that the Canton Police Department was recused from this investigation in all particulars, correct?
That they had taken a step back from participating, yes.
Right. Well, there's one way to put it. They've taken a step back from participating. Another way to put it is they recused themselves completely, correct?
Correct.
They were not going to be, at least in your mind, they were not to be involved
Yeah.
in any way, just like Boston PD was not to be involved in any way. Is that right?
Objection.
Is that what you were thinking?
It was my understanding they were not going to be involved.
yeah, he answers that.
5051 writes,
Yeah.
but I assume you guys are out to make it cut and dry since it involves cops, correct?
Yes.
And Bird writes, something stinks, correct?
Correct.
And then Trooper Proctor, you responded, yeah, but there will be some serious charges brought on the girl. Isn't that right?
That's right.
So in that text exchange, you were saying, yeah, we're out to make it cut and dry, correct?
No.
You didn't write, yeah, we're going to follow the evidence wherever it takes us. You didn't, did you?
I did not write that.
You didn't write, yeah, we're going to make sure that we investigate this thing fully and thoroughly before making any decisions. You didn't say that, did you?
I did not.
You wrote, yeah, but there will be some serious charges brought on the girl. Isn't that right?
Correct.
And the reason you wrote that is because you knew, as the text above it says, this has to be cut and dry because it involves cops, right?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that. Is that the reason you wrote it?
No, Your Honor.
And then you indicated, we're going to put serious charges on the girl. Who did you mean by the girl, by the way?
The defendant.
Karen Reed?
Yes, sir.
So the way that you were going to make it cut and dry, pretty simple. Just pin it on the girl, right?
Objection.
Is that right?
Absolutely not. Follow the facts and the evidence from that day on the 29th, and everything led to Miss Reed hitting Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
But that wasn't the question that you were answering, was it? We're going to follow the evidence and make sure we do this thoroughly. The question you were answering was, I assume you guys, you, Trooper Proctor, and your team are going to, quote, make it cut and dry since it involves cops, meaning Brian Albert, correct?
Incorrect. Doesn't matter to me if the homeowner's a cop, if the victim's a police officer. Myself and everyone in my office investigated this case that Saturday, had an overwhelming amount of evidence that Miss Reed struck Mr. O'Keefe. So it didn't matter to us what their occupation was.
We'll see. Let's keep reading, shall we?
I love that part.
5051, a little further down, says, gotta be. I could only imagine what internal affairs at BPD are trying to get out there. Correct?
Correct.
Meaning, this person, 5051, was opining, at least in your mind, you interpreted that as being Boston police are going to have a lot to answer for, given the fact that another Boston police officer was found dead on that officer's lawn. Correct?
Objection.
What were you thinking?
Can't speak to the mindsets of that comment. I wasn't sure how to interpret that one.
All right, next question, Mr. Jackson.
Then 5051 changes gears and he writes, she hot at least? Correct?
Yes.
And what was your response to that?
From all accounts, he didn't do a thing wrong. She's a whack job cunt.
From all accounts, he didn't do a thing wrong. She's a whack job cunt. That's what you wrote, correct?
Correct.
16 hours into this investigation,
Yes.
into your objective and unbiased, thorough investigation, correct?
Correct.
But sir, you didn't have all accounts, did you?
What I meant by that was
Did you or did you not have all accounts in your investigation?
the accounts we had was Miss Reed struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle, discovered taillight pieces at the scene. Those are the accounts we had.
The
And
accounts
then
you
some.
had, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The accounts you had, Trooper Proctor, were from two people named McCabe and one named Albert, who happened to be the homeowner and a Boston cop. Those are the accounts from percipient witnesses that you had, correct?
There was another additional witness that we had, investigators had interviewed, Miss Roberts as well.
And from all accounts, he didn't do a thing wrong. That was your decision 16 hours into the investigation, correct?
Yes.
And the other decision that you made and the other determination you came to was my client, Karen Reed, was a whack job cunt, right?
Yes.
It's awful, guys.
What else did you say in response to she's hot at least?
No.
Or she hot at least, question mark.
So following that text, I responded, yeah, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass.
Yeah, she's a babe. Who's the she?
My head.
Miss Reed.
Weird Fall River accent, though.
Fucking hell.
You talking about her, the way she talks?
The accent.
And no ass. Now you're talking about her body, her physique, correct?
Yes.
You think that's appropriate?
Absolutely not.
Then Bird chimes in with a little comedy. Not newsworthy then. Correct?
Correct.
In other words,
I actually love the way he says that, right? Bird chimes in with a little comedy.
well, if she didn't have an ass, nothing to see here, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
And then 5051 says, oh, she's skating, right?
Correct.
And what did you write after that?
My response was 0 chance she skated.
And then what did you write?
She's fucked.
0 chance she skates. She's fucked, right?
Correct.
You decided on the 29th of January, 17 hours into this investigation, you decided individually, Trooper Proctor, you're not only going to put it on the girl, you decided you're going to make sure this is cut and dried, and the way you're going to do it is to make sure that she's fucked. That's what you were saying.
Objection.
All right, so that's sustained. The content's fine. You have to ask it differently.
17 hours into this investigation, Trooper Proctor, you made the decision that you were going to put it on Miss Reed, didn't you? Put the case on Miss Reed. She was going to catch the case, correct?
No, absolutely not.
What did you mean then when you said she's fucked?
After the day's investigation with multiple troopers conducting multiple tasks and a debriefing at Canton PD amongst detectives in my office, we went through the overwhelming amount of evidence against Miss Reed that she struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle. That's what I meant by that comment.
What you meant by that comment, Trooper Proctor, was you were going to make sure, because 5051 had said she's going to skate. She's skating. When you said 0 chance she skates, she's fucked. What you meant was, I'm going to make sure, I am going to make sure Ms. Reed doesn't skate. She's fucked. That's what you meant, isn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
And then Bird decides to chime in. Good, no ass bitch, right?
Yes, that's what he wrote.
And how did you respond to Bird saying, good, no ass bitch?
I laughed.
Thought that was funny, did you? Trooper Proctor? Thought that was funny?
It was unprofessional of me. That's something I shouldn't have done.
Well, I think we all know it was unprofessional. It was a lot of things. I'm asking
Yep.
you, did you think it was funny?
No, according to my response at the time, apparently.
Then you sent a picture, just to add to it, to pile on, of Miss Reed being arrested, correct?
Not sure if that came from me, sir.
The date is now February 2nd, 2022. And a person by the name of Doc writes, is that chick a smoke? Correct?
Correct.
Who's the chick?
Miss Reed.
And you write, E-H, right?
Yes.
And then you write nutbag, as Chief would say, correct?
There it is.
Correct.
Not bag
Who's
of-
Chief?
Chief
A
Berkowitz.
friend of mine.
So like that's got to be Chief Berkowitz. So that's what I was saying about this, like that toxic masculinity. Like that's the vibe that's been established clearly within these departments. You know what I mean?
And then you write what?
She's got a leaky balloon knot.
Trooper Proctor, explain to the jurors what a balloon knot is.
Your, essentially, I guess, your rectum area.
Your anus?
Yes.
Ugh.
That's what you were referring to about Miss Reed?
Yes.
And you were making fun of her because you believed at that time that it leaked? That's how you were treating Miss Reed? Yes or no?
Yes.
Ugh.
And then you followed that up just to make sure you cleared up any mistake about what you meant with leaks poo, correct?
Objection.
All right, so I'm going to strike that. You could get this in, but do it the right way, Mr. Jackson.
You followed that up with the phrase leaks poo, didn't you?
I did.
Again, another reference to Miss Reed's medical issues and medical conditions, correct?
Correct.
Specifically focused on her anus, correct?
In reference, yes.
Were you aware at the time that you wrote this that Miss Reed had suffered a colectomy surgery, very serious surgery?
I was not, sir, no.
Were you aware that she had had 10 surgeries in 18 months, several years prior? 10.
I was not aware of that.
Were you aware that she had serious medical issues, gastrointestinal medical issues that she suffered with, she was a victim of for years? Did you know that?
Objection.
Sustained.
You decided that you were going to take another shot at her and talk about her anatomy as a balloon knot, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Ugh.
At this point, Trooper Proctor, Miss Reed was just reduced to a punchline to you, wasn't she?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, you weren't done yet. This chat doesn't end yet, does it?
No, sir.
On the same date, February 2nd, 2022, about 4:15 p.m., a person by the name of Whitey wrote, "What are you guzzling on?" Correct?
Yes.
And you wrote, "Nothing, writing a warrant." Is that right?
Correct.
Whitey then shares some sort of a video, correct?
Yes.
You remember that video being of the 1980s band Warrant?
I don't recall the video he sent.
0095 laughed and then wrote, wait, why does her asshole leak? Correct?
Yes, that's what he wrote.
On
My God.
Monday,
It's not.
you indicated that your conduct in this case, and specifically your conduct as reflected in these messages, how did you put it? It did not affect the integrity of the investigation, of your investigation, correct? That's what you
Correct.
said to the jurors.
Correct.
Do you know what the definition of integrity is?
Doing the right thing when no one's looking.
That's not. Clearly.
It means the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you believe that integrity means being honest and having strong moral principles?
I believe that's part of it as well.
Do you stand by that testimony
Yeah.
that you were showing strong moral principles
Yeah.
in this investigation, sir?
In the investigation part, absolutely. Through these text messages, absolutely not. They were juvenile and regrettable.
All right, that's it for this one, guys. I I thought it'd be funny to finish it with him saying that he's calling his text messages juvenile and regrettable. Famous last words, right? So that's it for this one. So here's what's happening for the rest of the week, y'all. So tomorrow is a full day in court. From what I understand, EDB is traveling. I think she still has a live stream posted just for the chat or whatever, but she's going to be traveling and not going to be there from what I understand. Runkle is like in court, I think. And I actually also will not be available to live stream because I have such a busy lesson day. You're welcome, Black Witter. Such a busy lesson day tomorrow. So I know that's what I also I was thinking the same thing, Kit Smits. So I will be available Friday. Friday's a half day. We'll be available Friday. And I'm thinking we'll have to see what happens on Friday. We'll also have to see what happens on Thursday, right? Because again, it's a full day. I don't know what's going to happen. Will the Commonwealth rest? We don't know. So depending on what happens on Thursday and who gets called and stuff, what we might do is just do a makeup day, like maybe on Friday or maybe on Saturday, and just do like a makeup day to watch it live, depending on what happens. If it's not anything really that, crazy, or, if it's just like there's one witness that's really worth watching, we'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. I guess whatever, I can't even remember his name. There was a trooper on the stand, right? And they were going through Karen's and John O'Keefe's text messages. That's where we left off. So that's what we'll continue tomorrow. I mean, that's some good stuff. So I don't know, but we'll figure it out. It might be, if it's just finishing that one witness that's interesting, then maybe we'll do that on Friday after the half day. And then there will be another recap maybe on Saturday probably, but I'll keep you guys posted as always in the Discord. Cool. Well, love you guys. Let me go ahead and roll that outro. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for being a squirrel.